Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show live. It's a huge, massive, big season preview show. We've got everybody on that you could hope to see on the stream. I'm Stephen Brown. With me is Chris Bell. Chris, how are we doing, mate?
Yeah, very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Start of a new season. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I mean, you must be feeling better than you were, even 2 or 3 weeks ago as a Leeds fan.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a bit more optimistic. Couple of good pre-season games, last two particularly, Forest and Hearts. So yeah, looking forward to it. Actually, surprisingly, a bit gutted.
Cool.
Still not a Premier League team, but what can you do?
I mean, you're taking this very well. I'll be honest. I thought you'd still be in tears by this stage. So
no, if you'd have seen a few streams that me and Jason did a while ago, you'd have seen
did.
all the tears and.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's start getting people in. First of all, we're going to bring that man in, Booker T. Jason, how we doing, mate?
I'm all right, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, good. We've had a few chats, obviously, over the course of the summer. It's just a couple of days away now, Jason. Are you looking forward to it, mate?
I've got like a quiet optimism, then pessimism, and then I don't know. I just go back and forward with it, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of the Leeds fans are feeling exactly the same. I think one day to the next, it flows and ebb and flows back both ways. The transfer window's not been exactly what we wanted, but then pre-season's been okay. The forms looked good. We've started to play a style again. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to football being back. That's the first thing. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game, the season opener. And then, yeah, fingers crossed on to Sunday. And a bit like yourself, I'm as much as can be, I'm over the Premier League heartache. I've cried all my tears, got over it, and I've moved on into hopefully what will be a successful season. Hopefully.
Yes. Perfect. We like that. Please, if you're watching a video, do smash a like on it. Also, subscribe to the channel to get more content on our teams here across West Yorkshire. And get your comments in as well. How do you think your team's going to do this season as well? Next up, it's that man from the Huddersfield hub. It is the Terrier, our resident Terrier. It's Stephen Downs. Steve, how are we doing, mate?
Not bad, mate. Not bad. Looking forward to a nice little chat tonight. Relaxing on the podcast, I'm sure.
Are you looking forward to the season, though, most importantly?
Yeah, looking forward to the season. Yeah, we've there's certain optimism. We haven't got a lot of new players to talk about, but it's Neil Warnock, so anything can happen. There's always a dream, so we'll see where we go. But yeah, pre-season's been interesting to watch, and I'm looking forward to coming up against the rest of the championship with a full Warnock season ahead. To be honest.
He means Leeds. That's what he means.
Sorry,
here we go.
I thought we'd entered the Leeds United podcast over here on the last couple of months, to be quite honest. I'm getting sick of Jay, to be in a nice way. By the way, I do like Jay, everybody, but yeah.
I think we should probably bring in Bradford City now, Steve, and just quickly move on from
balance it out.
Yes, let's get Gaz in from Whitford Post. Gaz, how are we doing, mate? Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, not so bad, thanks. How are you lot?
Very good. You mentioned a little bit when we were off air, you're a little bit pessimistic going into this season, so I don't want to say how are you feeling about the upcoming season, but what is the vibe? Bradford City starting their season this Saturday?
Yeah, quite a lot of pessimism about, I think, at the moment. There's a few people that are optimistic, but you get them everywhere, don't you? And I suppose you get the negative ones everywhere as well. But yeah, I think the general feeling is we're a bit apprehensive because we're not happy with how the summer's gone a little bit. But I suppose we'll talk about that a bit more in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to our non-league teams, delight to say we've got Chairman Stats, aka David Foy, in the building. He's going to be here chatting all things Halifax Town. Dave, how are we doing, mate?
Yeah, fine. I'm just really, really warm. I don't know if that's coming through on the camera. I'm really warm, even though it's raining outside.
Are you in Greece, Dave? Are you in
I'm in
Zakynthos.
No, I'm literally in West Yorkshire. just really warm.
Well, we're all in West Yorkshire, but you look like you're in 70 degrees, son.
I know. I think it might have just been my room. It's like a little heat trap. It's above the kitchen as well. So, but yeah, I'm really warm.
Chucking it down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's it like here, actually? Yeah, it's get a bit overcast over here as well.
I-
Dave, looking forward to the season, mate?
I am. It's good just to have competitive football back. Obviously, there's news breaking that James Norwood's just signed for Oldham, straight from Championship Barnsley. So, you know, I suppose I'm jumping a bit of the gun from the questions, but Chesterfield and Oldham are going to be the Wrexham and Notts County of this season. But apart from that, yeah, I'm looking forward to it all beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, we can't leave him out. It is Mr. Farsley Celtic. No, Mr. Bradford Park Avenue. It is Lewis. Lewis, how are we doing, mate?
Not bad, guys. Are you?
Yeah, good. Season's already started, obviously, in a lot of parts of West Yorkshire. You've been to a few games yourself as well, mate. But are you looking forward to the rest of us catching up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in for a really exciting season across both EFL and the National League. But yeah, I've been to 9 games and already seen 44 goals. So let's hope that's more of the things to come, really.
Yeah, you and Chris,
clearly defence is on top. Yeah.
You and Chris, you've got a bit of competition going on about how many games you've seen. I mean, how many have you done, Lewis? Sorry, 9 or 10, is it?
9.
Yeah, I think I'm on 9 as well.
Oof.
To be fair, most of them have been the same games in most. I think there's possibly 1 or 2 differences. Like I couldn't go to camping on Wednesday and see the 8 goals that he did. I went to Eccleshill the week before whilst he was living it up in the Maldives. So swings and roundabouts, yeah.
Yeah, I think I know where I'd rather be.
Eccleshill, yeah, Bradford.
Yeah.
Are you just at the opposite end of the grounds chanting against each other for these teams?
Yeah, you know what as well, Stephen. We were going to be really cheeky because we went to Steeton the other night and there was Salts against Oxenhope, reserves playing on the pitch next to him, and we thought, could we count this as 2 games? We were that desperate.
Have you seen them people?
How rock and roll are we? Yeah.
Have you seen them people on Twitter that take a photograph and it's literally a schoolyard and they're saying that's a game? Like,
That's me.
That's their Twitter feed, Steve. You talk about.
I mean, the less said about hanging around schoolyards, the better. Let's crack on, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Chris,
let's
lower in the tone.
Yeah, let's start with the Championship then. Jason, Steve, Leeds United, Huddersfield Town. Leeds obviously relegated last year. Jason, obviously we've covered that a lot. Steve survived in the Championship last year.
That's it. Dave's had enough already.
Dave's gone. He's off to get a few ice packs or something, I think. Guys, who wants to kick us off then? What do we make of the Championship? How do you think the teams are going to fare this season?
You shoot, Steve.
I'll let you go for it, Jay. Go on, because you crack on, son. Just don't take 10 minutes about it.
I mean, I can't promise anything. But in the nicest possible way, I've been a little bit ignorant to the Championship. I think we spoke about it, and we're Brownie. Like, I've been a bit ignorant to it for the 3 seasons that we've been away. So the complete strength of the Championship, I'm not 100% sure. And I don't know if how many of us really feel about who's going to be up there. I think we can all say what we want about Leicester and Southampton. My personal prediction is that Southampton will win the league, but I think there's reservations around that and questions to be answered. What will Russell Martin do under a bit more scrutiny and a bit more pressure? Will the style suit, going into and trying to win games every week? What's Maresca got? What are Leicester going to have to offer in terms of motivation? There's going to be some players that don't want to be there by the looks of it come the start of the season. And then, you kind of fall down into Leeds. And I think given where we are right now, it's really difficult because I think the team will be very different come the start of come the end of the window. I think the team that we start with against Cardiff won't be the same as what we'll end the window with. So how that then looks is going to be tricky. And I think for me, we'd do well to finish top 6. I still feel like that. Like my optimism has gone up and down and back and forward, and we've got some good players, and we are going to have some killers in the division by the looks of it. But at the same time, there's some massive gaping holes in this team, especially at 9 and in behind the striker at 10. We don't have Daniel Farker players in them 2 positions. I mean, we actually don't have an out-and-out number 9 to start the season with. So there is some worry.
It sounds like you're on an emotional roller coaster at Leeds' season, and it's only just turned August.
The thing is, Chris, right? I mean, Brownie will tell you, like, you watch the Leeds United content creators throughout the whole of YouTube. I think everybody's the same. Like, one day, Ethan Ampadu signs and we're going to win the league. The next day, there's no signings, and we're hearing about X, Y, and Z potentially leaving, and we're in the dumps again. Like this morning, or yesterday, I can't remember now. The article came out about no new signings coming in. They're deliberating over Sam Byram, and like fans are like up in arms, like, oh, just get it done. You know, like it's Sam Byram is a makeshift left back anyway. Why can't we sign him? There clearly is a lot that the club are having to deal with as a consequence of relegation and all these clauses that were in, you know, players' contracts and what we can and can't do with funds. It's causing us a massive problem. Because I do believe that the new owners would have liked to move quicker on some of these signings. There's no way that we'd have been going into Cardiff in their minds, I don't think, with only Darlow and Ampadu signed. I just don't believe that was part of the plan. I just don't believe it. I think they found it harder to move players on for the figures that they wanted to get. And they've been left with no option but to let some of these go on loan. So, yeah, it's tricky. And then we hear rumours today about Liam Cooper going to Saudi Arabia. Wow. 2 days before the season's out. So, yeah.
Especially after what he said, you know, with his big speech about slinging your hook if you don't want to be there.
We probably don't have time to go into it in depth, but there's no way it goes. There's no way it goes for me.
Come on, money talks.
Yeah, but in terms of like his life, like Liam Cooper's got a position forever at the top of the tree in and around Leeds United, you know, a bit like Jermaine Beckford, a bit like Eddie Gray, even like it for me for a year's worth of a big bag of cash that, you know, yeah, it'd be nice. I think he will see the bigger picture, but
I don't think Steve Downs agrees with you. Looking at his face as you were saying that, then I think Steve's thinking he's on the next place to Doha.
Personally, that's my feeling on it.
Absolute mad that you've just compared Liam Cooper to Eddie Gray, one of the best Leeds United strikers ever. But there we go. That's fine. That's what.
Hey, he was a winger. Come on, football.
That's
knowledge.
Fine. No. I'm not saying you've got rubbish football knowledge. I'm saying you've made an absolutely. Well, you might as well have compared oranges to ostriches, but there we go.
What I'm saying is he's a modern day legend, isn't he? You don't get legends like Eddie Gray nowadays.
No. I agree with it.
You know what I mean? And the point is that he'll be able to sit in, you know, the Leeds United sphere if he stays on. If he leaves for Saudi after what he said, there's no way that he'd be welcomed back in the same way. So yeah. Anyway, that's a completely side point, isn't it? I think. Yeah, it's a tricky one for Leeds. I think we go into Sunday with, you know, optimism. We're at home. They're really on paper. They'll probably be a team that will finish in the bottom 6, bottom 7. I think personally, they've got a transfer embargo themselves. They're going to struggle. We should be hoping to take 3 points, really.
Steve, takeover happened at Huddersfield Town. It was all confirmed and complete. Kevin Nagle, the man who's taken charge. How has the summer been? What changes have you seen? Not so much going on in the transfer market, but I mean, Huddersfield quite a big squad, would you say? A bit of a bloated squad anyway, and was there enough room to bring players? I mean, how has the summer been? What do you make of the work that the new ownership group has done so far?
Well, the changes have been more about off the field rather than on the pitch. Neil's done his press conference today and said that we obviously everybody knows we're after a striker and a midfielder. We brought a right back in from Stoke on loan in Tom Edwards and Chris Maxwell, goalkeeper. Chris is, you know, an experienced keeper who previously played at Blackpool and Preston. Good goalkeeper. Tom Edwards, not really know a lot about him, but looks sort of your average sort of decent championship player. So we're looking for a striker and a midfielder. Neil's come out and said that a few players have sort of let him down in discussions, which I find is quite interesting. I feel like he's been he's not just going after anybody. He wants certain people that are going to do him a certain job, which I kind of like because it means obviously he's got certain targets involved. But Neil's just said that he's going to get on with it, and look, we have to. You know, we've got. I disagree when you say we've got a big squad. We definitely haven't got a big squad. Our depth is not great at all, to be honest. After the first 11, you're looking at quite a lot of younger players coming in, and that's what he's going to have to rely on again. You know, it's going to be a difficult season. I don't agree with Jay on Southampton. I think I've got them to come second. I've got Leicester to win the league because I just think if it's going bad at Leicester, they'll just get a big manager in, and when it comes to January, they'll get a big players in. they'll just spend the money because they have got the money. So I just think they'll end up winning the league like Newcastle did it a couple of years ago, not by points, just by sheer spending power. The rest of the division is very close. There's a lot of teams making very good signings. Madge has just gone to West Brom, who are in financial difficulty at the moment. That's a great signing for them. Watford have made a lot of big signings under Ishmael, and he did well at Barnsley, of course, when they were finished sixth a couple of seasons ago, and he did well there. I agree with you. I think Cardiff will finish down near the bottom of the league. So Town have got a difficult season ahead, really. Where do we fit into the Championship? Because we haven't brought a lot of players in. Neil's got very much the same squad. We've let a number of players go, over 10 players go. Like Dwayne Holmes, that he's moved on to Preston. Will Boyle's gone to Wrexham. I'm not saying these players would have got into the team, into the first team, or even to the squad, but they reduce our depth by the fact that they're not there anymore. So it's going to be a very hard season ahead. Plymouth, the first game away, I think the EFL rigged it so Neil could have a home game because technically it is a home game for him. But yeah, we'll just see how it goes. Plymouth are a good side. They've made a number of signings. Everybody's got us, all the content makers that I've seen, have got us to finish 19th and just surviving. I think we'll do personally a bit better than that.
What about the Warnock factor then? Do you think that kind of magic wand that he waved over the club, is that going to be able to extend this season? I've heard a few people possibly commenting that he works really well when there's a short-term goal to achieve, like last season coming in and saving Huddersfield Town season. But when it's kind of laid out a whole season in front of him, is it going to last? Is that magic factor, that motivating factor, going to last? I mean, in his press conference today, he says we've got a tough start and we'll see where we're going to be in a few weeks. It feels a bit kind of, I don't know, not underwhelming, but...
Yeah, but this is what Neil does. He lulls everybody into false sense of security, and then we go beat Middlesbrough and Watford in 2 games, and Millwall, who we should never have beaten at all. So you're forgetting the fact. You say that he can't do it over a season. He got 8 promotions, man. He's the most successful Championship manager in history. I don't get what
But now, though, where he's taking a lot of short-term jobs and he's, he will be 75 this year. I mean...
Yeah,
but that's just experience, Steve.
That's just experience. Age doesn't matter, right? In terms of his experience, he knows every team in this division. He's bloody managed most of them, so he knows them, doesn't he? So every game,
Leeds though.
Exactly, Steve. There are certain Chris. There are certain factors at Leeds. You were a tin pot outfit. You're a basket case of a club, and you had an owner in Bates who, God knows what happened there. But just the magic were never going to happen there because it just wasn't. But he's done it at most of his other clubs, and he will get these players to give 110% every single week. There will not be a Mark Fotheringham this season because it just won't happen. It won't be allowed to happen. So, Chris, put your T-shirt away.
I was going to say Chris will be devastated at that.
I know Chris has got his little flags out already, hasn't he? Bring back Mark.
Genuine question then, Steve. What amongst the whole kind of the Town fan base?
Yeah.
What sort of expectation is there? What do you think is the overall consensus of where Town fans expect to finish, and what would be considered a bitter disappointment, or is that just the obvious of relegation?
That's the obvious of relegation. Some people are saying there are a bit of expectation because of how we finished last season, which I accept. That's fair comment, but I think the majority of the fan base are quite tired, really, because we've had relegation, promotion, for the last 10 years. We just want to be Ipswich of the last 10 years, to be honest. Just like steady away, 14th in the division. A season like that would be okay. Yes, you might want to, go to the top 10. That'd be brilliant. But let's just have a season of stability, get the new ownership in, and hope and hope that we can just, have some normality, really. I mean, he's talked about not making a lot of signings, but there are some players in that squad that he didn't have from last season. Yuta Nakayama unfortunately got injured. I thought he was going to be a great player for us at centre-back, Japanese international. Sober Thomas he didn't have because he was loaned to Blackburn. Looks like Sober's come back with a new attitude. Josh Karoma, he obviously got playing. And then he's got youngsters like Pat Jones who were injured. So, there's a lot of talent still in the squad. It's a basic championship squad, but it can be a very good squad.
Beat Leeds and stay up in it, Steve. That'll be a good season.
Sorry, I thought you were European champions. Anyway, I'm not, Leeds fan. This is the thing, right? I'm not going to attack Jay because he's just got an overbloated expectation to win the league.
I've said the opposite.
Where town fans are very realistic at the moment, a bit like Bradford City fans, but unfortunately Bradford City are a bit more dour, aren't they? They just think that they're off to the Northern Premier East League, Yorkshire Division or whatever. So it's just unfortunate. We're a bit in the middle, I think. Do you know what we are? We are the jam sponge of the championship. We're just average, aren't we? You go into a cafe and you order a Victoria sponge cake, and it's like, yeah, that's it.
I mean, one of the problems we've had, Jason, as Leeds, it's a big fish in a championship.
Oh, here we go.
And everybody wants to beat us. Yeah, but can I just
end the podcast now, please?
Hang on. I answered you, Jason, in a tweet from Hull City, and it was a bunch of Hull City players asked, who are you looking forward to playing in the league? Leeds. Every single player said
Leeds away. Leeds away.
It's a problem.
Why?
I mean, how big of a problem is that? How big of a problem is that for us, Jason, going forward?
I do think it's a big issue. I remember when we came down in 2005, it were a big issue then. I'd say it was probably a bigger issue then than it is now, because we weren't long out of being, European semi-finalists and the rest of it. But it certainly was a big issue. No, it was. I truly believe it was the reason that we stayed down in League One for the amount of time that we did. I think we were in there 3 seasons in the end. And it made a massive, massive difference because some of these teams that we were playing, we were playing Shrewsbury and, they'd never had the opportunity to play at Ellen Road. And it was a massive, massive deal. It was, Steve. It was a massive deal. And not only that,
playing at Wembley in FA Cup final. It's
for some of these teams and for some of these players, it was as big as that.
To be fair, Steve, I do know where Jason's coming from.
Jay, I get it, Jay, right? But you are a yellow skip at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? It's not a nice stadium to go to, is it?
It's not about the stadium. It's about the history. It's about the size of the club. It's about you know what? It's about, in many ways, Steve, getting one over how arrogant we can be. Like, it is all of that. Like, I get it. Like,
Don't play this psychology like with me. Don't play this.
True.
Right. Just who won the quiz the other week. That's all I'm bothered about.
Get out of here. Get in the bin. And not only that, right? Like, just keeping it on point. The players dealing with that pressure every week as well. So we've seen over the years how many quote unquote good players have come through the doors at Leeds and not being able to deal with it in the championship. And I think again that is going to be an issue this season. There's going to be players that are not capable of dealing with the atmosphere when we turn and we go down and we're on the backs, because Ellen Road can turn quick. It was brilliant under Bielsa for a few years, but it can turn nasty real quick. Like that's my apprehension with the likes of Archie Gray stepping up this season. Like expecting a lad at 17-year-old as good as he is to step in and start his first game on Sunday as a mainstay in your centre midfield. It's a massive, massive ask. So
you're good at slagging off your own team. I agree.
Yeah, lost.
You just said that yourself. I'm not.
This guy,
not
honestly,
lying.
back in Huddersfield domain. Oh,
no, all we had to do was some basic level of competence in the Premier League, and we'd have still been there, Jason.
No, you wouldn't. No, you were a basket case in the Premier League.
It's not that hard to finish 17th in the Premier League.
We did it.
I said it for months and months and months that it's far easier to finish 17th in the Premier League than it is get promoted out of the Championship. And yet some fans were like, let's have a reset. Yeah, it'll be all right in Championship. Like, no, not for me. But we are where we are. It is what it is. Like, we're not that long out of it that we've forgotten. It will be nice to win more games. I will say that, hopefully. And you know, hope can start to now. You could, you know, I know still Steve's saying this a bit tongue in cheek, but we are a bit of a basket case, and we certainly have been for the last, I'd say, 10 years. The you know, Ken Bates era, and then the two Italians. Like it has been a bit mad. So hopefully we can start having and building towards a bit more of a solid future. Because as great as the Premier League was, we still weren't really solid, especially after Bielsa left. The second Bielsa left, any sort of kind of normality and structure disappeared with it. So
I agree with what Dave just commented there. Yes, every fan base does slag off their own teams. That is quite correct. Even Bradford Park Avenue fans slag off their own team. So, but I agree, it's going to be the toughest championship season ever. I don't think it's. I've seen a lot of Leicester fans on Twitter saying how they're just going to absolutely bulldoze the division. Well,
they won't.
Unfortunately, it's been a few years since they've been out the championship, and I think that they're going to come in for a bit of a stick, because once again, everybody's going to be out to beat them, you know, ex-Premier League champions and all
Absolutely.
that. I think Southampton are more built for the championship. I'm very interested to see whether Russell Martin can get his style going at Southampton, because there's far more expectation there than what there was at Swansea. But Russell Martin teams do start off slow, so...
He seems an overrated manager to me. It's like a lot of possession for very, very little going forward.
Yeah, well, I how did I describe it? I described it, I think, to you and Steve in one of our chats of Russell Martin is like a speedboat that is constantly on left-hand side down going in a circle. Doesn't really go anywhere, but it looks a nice speedboat. That's what Russell Martin teams are.
Whether it'll transpire into more with a better team, though, that's the question.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting as well, to be fair, for Southampton, because obviously they could still lose Ward-Prowse for, 50-odd mil. Looks like they're going to lose Tino Livramento for 40 mil. So all of a sudden, Southampton have gone from being a side that don't have a great deal of money to spend to suddenly being a club with quite a lot of money to spend.
My top six, I'll just read my top six out. So my top six are Leicester, Southampton, Middlesbrough, which I know Jay doesn't necessarily agree with. I've got Leeds to finish in fourth, to be fair, because I think you have.
It must have hurt you to write that.
I wrote it in blood. So Leeds to finish fourth. Watford and Stoke. I think Stoke will do well.
Stoke might be a bit of an underdog here.
What about Ipswich for the double promotion?
I think that's very tough. In other championship seasons, I think Ipswich would have been definitely very, very well placed to be top 10. But it's going to be too tough. My bottom three, by the way, are Rotherham to finish bottom because it's Rotherham. But it's Rotherham. Like they don't spend any money.
They don't.
Chef Wednesday, because it's even more of a basket. Well, it's the biggest basket case in the whole country at the moment, and QPR because. Well, it's Cupid. I mean, if they don't sack, who is it? Before the Ainsworth in the first 10 games, I'll be shocked. I think Preston, Birmingham, and Cardiff will all struggle as well. I'm
very conscious that Jay and Steve have obviously understandably had a lot to say on the championship. I am curious though, actually, for Dave and for Gaz and Lewis, for your general take as non-championship fans, to kind of what's your take on this coming season for the championship? Feel free to chip in.
I've literally got no interest.
That is. I mean, Dave's thinking.
Sorry.
I remember asking you about the Wrexham documentary, Dave, and you were like, "I don't care."
Yeah, I really don't, because it'll just be like, "Oh yeah, Ryan Reynolds owns them. Did you know he's Deadpool? Oh, everything's great. You've had millions pumped into you. You're going to be great." In the same way Fleetwood are in League One or League Two, the guy who owned them had £650 million in his pocket. You know what I mean? It don't mean now. It's just irrelevant.
All right then.
To be fair, Dave doesn't even like the rest of the National League. Never mind the Championship.
Wait until Wrexham play Salford and Sky will spontaneously combust because they'll be so excited.
No, they're just.
The build up to that will be longer than the FA Cup final,
to be honest. But yeah, they will.
So, Lewis, any remote thoughts on the championship? I mean, any advance on Dave?
Go on, guys. You go first. I've got mine, but yeah, you go, mate.
I don't pay much attention, to be honest. We're so far away from that at the moment. It's like it's pointless looking at it because we're so far away. I think you're right about Russell Martin.
Next week, can I bring you all in, give you some chance to say something, and look at this. Nobody gives a flying so-and-so.
Well, it's just because we're so far away from it. I think you're right about Russell Martin, just based on what he's done elsewhere. I don't think he's not achieved much yet, has he? So let's see how he goes. But you mentioned Southampton. They're going to sell, did you say Livramento? They're on about him going today. Ward-Prowse could go, Lavia could go. So that's going to give them money to spend then. So it depends how they spend it, though, doesn't it? My mate's a Leicester fan, and he's apprehensive. He doesn't know how Maresca will go. He says he could go either way. Obviously,
how can you know? How can you know how he's going to go?
Exactly. I mean, he says that he hopes he goes the way Arteta's gone at Arsenal. But even Arteta at Arsenal took ages to get going, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, if Maresca takes a similar amount of time, I don't know. Other than that, I don't know. I just hope Leeds and Huddersfield both come down and we go up.
Can you imagine?
Gaz, if that happens, I will personally buy you a bottle of Jameson's at the end of the season.
I was the person saying that Huddersfield Town should have got Mark Hughes before Bradford City did as well.
You can have him if you want.
Yeah, but Steve, you live on your own planet, son.
Okay, well let's have a look at Bradford City then, Gaz.
Hang on.
Is that championship done?
I'm sorry, Louis.
Is that championship done? Are we finished with that now?
It's all right, mate. I'm not bothered either, so yeah, you can move on. I personally think it's going to be the most open championship. I don't think anybody's going to run away with it like what with Burnley did. I think the really intriguing thing is that, all three teams have come down, have got brand new managers. There's stuff happening off the field, which does affect, it usually does affect what happens on the field. I've tipped Middlesbrough to go up, but then again, they haven't got Archer. It's obviously at Prom as well, question mark. So there's a question mark over that, but I think Carrick's done a phenomenal job there so early on in his career. I think it's going to be incredibly open. I think for looking at our teams, for Leeds, I think you'll only judge if it's successful by your transfer window at the end of by September. I think that's where you can really judge it. I'm not Ampadu's greatest fan, but I think he'll do a job for you. And I think if you get 20, 25 million for Adams, I think that's pretty decent business. And I think you're right, you need a number 9. I think without a number 9, you're not going to go up as champions. But the signing of getting Charlie Crespo back feels like a new signing, I think, probably for you guys as well. For Huddersfield, I think Steve's kind of nailed it. I think it's almost carry on a bit of momentum from what we did from the end of last season. If we can do that, they're going to be probably, as crazy it sounds, knocking on the playoffs. They were in such good form. Do I think they will end up there? Probably not. But the championship is that open. You wouldn't have said at the time Huddersfield would have gone up when they did. So I think it's going to be incredibly tight. Like I said, I don't think anybody's going to run away with it. I think at the end of the season, I'm kind of similar with Steve and his predictions. I think there's probably 5 or 6 teams who, might be cut adrift, so to speak, from the rest of the pack. But yeah, I think the transfer window is going to be really interesting. I've not tipped Southampton to go up as champions yet, just simply because of the personnel they're losing. I think the too much of a good set of players that they're going to lose to replace at that level, and they're going to have to get a completely used to a different way of playing under Russell Martin, which I don't think is going to happen overnight. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and I think the crazy results on the championship are going to happen even more. So I think this year. That sounds a bit sensible, doesn't it? But yeah.
Somebody on YouTube, Gail Dale, has mentioned a team we haven't said yet. I don't know if we're going through a tick list, but she said, I think Sunderland may surprise us. Now, they were in the playoffs last year.
I've got them 4th at the moment.
I have them.
Sunderland may surprise us.
Signed a lot of good young players again, haven't they?
I have them
potential losing the main man up front, though, aren't they?
What they tend to do, Sunderland, is they buy very young sort of up-and-coming players from the second league of, say, France or Italy.
Yeah, they've picked up a young Portuguese, haven't they? From
Portuguese,
yeah.
And what it's a bit weird, really, because you'd think Mowbray would be a bit like Warnock. He'd like his experienced heads, but he's actually turned Sunderland into a very young, athletic and good footballing side.
Yeah, fantastic last season to watch.
When we played them, Warnock said it was the best footballing side we played. and I think we drew up there 1-1. So, they are a good team. I've got them just outside the playoffs, just simply because of the teams that are in it this year. I can't see past them 6.
It's a funny one because the 3 teams that came down from the Premier League were not Championship promoted the season before. It's made the Championship more stronger than it usually would be. You'd usually see a little bit of yo-yoing, but because Leicester, Southampton especially were established, and then Leeds had been out of it 3 years as well, the situation, especially around the funds and the players that have then been brought down, is just totally different.
100%. And the team's coming up. The
team's coming up. Ipswich and Plymouth especially.
I think Ipswich have got one of the best managers in this league under Kane McKenna. I think
McKenna.
If he doesn't go on to manage a Premier League club in the next 2-3 years, I'll be very surprised. I think Ipswich is my dark horse at the moment.
The only thing that I would say as well that makes it so interesting this year is there are so many teams that are either in their last year of parachute payments or just starting in the parachute payments. And there are 1 or 2 clubs that have just finished parachute payments that are so desperate, like West Brom, to get out of this division that they'll just spend absolutely stupid money on players, whether it's wages or transfer fees, to get out of it. And I just think it'll be an absolute dogfight in the. I genuinely think we will get to the end of the Championship, and 12 teams will be able to go up, and 12 teams will potentially be able to go down. I think it'll be that close.
Sorry, go on.
No, I just don't think there'll be runaways this year. I just don't.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. And I will just finish with saying with Leeds, as much as I was kind of pessimistic with regards to lack of transfer business, we are so quick as Leeds fans to forget how many good Championship players we've got come back into the squad this season. Dan James is up and ready for it, and like people can scoff at him at Premier League level, but they can't scoff at him at Championship level. He's a top player. Cody Drame's come back in, Charlie Cresswell's come back in, Leo Hjelde come back in. All have got experience in the Championship. So as much as I can be down about players that are not new to Leeds United come back in, these are all new players for us this season who have now got also Championship experience. Joe Gellart as well, and we've had his reservations about him, and he didn't have the greatest time at Sunderland, but still, if we'd have signed him fresh this summer, we'd have been like, that's an all right signing at Championship levels, and they are new back into our squad. So
and your best signing's been your manager. That's your best signing.
Yeah, agree completely.
Yeah,
but Liam Cooper's off to Saudi Arabia, so
I said to Brownie on the video the other day, and I'm being optimistic now. We've got the best manager. We've signed the best manager. I personally think we've made the best signing so far in Ampadu. We can all have his opinions on him, but I think he's the best value signing in the Championship so far. And I also think we have the best player in the Championship in Sinisterra. If he stays with us past the deadline, which by all sounds, it's come out today, it sounds like he is going to. I think we'll have the best player in the division as well. I mean, the guy's phenomenal. It's just his injury record.
He's too good. He's too good for his division on that.
Way too good. Way too good.
What's happening with Willie Gnonto?
Well, apparently today we've heard, haven't we, Brownie, that he's turned down Everton flat out. He won't go there regardless.
Nobody should.
Nobody's going there.
I struggle to see that he'll end up here past the end of the window. I think if he doesn't get a Premier League move, he'll be moved over to Italy, I think. That's
I can't believe an top Italian team hasn't gone in for him, like an AC Milan or
Roma Napoli are after him.
Yeah, go on,
Chris. No, I was going to say, does it set expectations a bit more for you guys? I know we're kind of going on a bit, so Paul Gaz is waiting. But I think in terms of you keep Sinisterra, you keep Gnonto, likes of Somerville. If you keep them guys beyond the transfer window, does your expectations get a little bit dizzy then? In thinking actually we should be going up with those players in our team.
100%, Lewis. 100%. The problem with the squad is it's a little bit unbalanced. So we've got so many good players that probably stand out in this division in the same position. So you mentioned a bunch of wingers there, really. You add Jack Harrison to that as well. But 100%. If we were Sinisterra, if he was fit for 25 games of the season, I think he's a game changer. If he's available for the last 3 months of the season, he manages to stay injury free, he's going to drag you to automatic promotion in whatever team he was in. It'd be like Leicester keeping Harvey Barnes. I think he's better than Harvey Barnes. Like I say, I think he would be the best player in the division. So I agree. 100% would agree with that, Lewis.
Can't argue with that. Okay, so we'll turn our attention now to League Two, Bradford City. Gaz, I got in touch with a City City friend of mine, and I said, "Are you looking forward to the new season?" And he said, "No." I said, "Why?" And he just sighed. What's going on? What is going on? Obviously, he got to playoffs, last season, didn't end well, very demoralising defeat. But what's happened this summer? Why is it all seem a little bit pessimistic?
I think there's a few reasons. I think there's a bit of a hangover from last year. People are obviously disappointed with how last season ended, and we didn't really turn up in the playoffs, and we did turn up at stages throughout the whole season as well. We're very negative. I think Hughes is going to try and change that, but the fact that he's trying to change that, he's changing to a 3-5-2 supposedly, and that's causing a lot of disharmony in the fans as well, because we don't think we've got the defensive personnel to play 3-5-2. He's played it in most of the pre-season games so far. We've got a left wing back. We've signed a guy called Clark Oduor from Barnsley, who is tried to be converted. People have tried to convert him into a wing back in the past, and it's just not worked, and they've given it up as a bad job. And he seems to be a winger, and he played one game as a winger in pre-season and looked really good. And the ones when he's played at wing back, it's just not worked out. He said in his interview when he signed that he's a winger. He sees himself as an attacking midfielder. The only other option we've got other than him at left wing back's Liam Ridehouse, who a lot of people just say he can't run. He's too old. He can't run. He's all right in a flat back four where he can just defend. But when you try and get him to do anything else, he'll struggle. And so he's not going to be able to bomb up and down the left-hand side. So the left-hand side worries us. And then last year, the actual defence was the strongest part of our team. We had a solid back four and a solid keeper, and it looked really good. So the fact that he's changed from a back four to a 3 centre-backs is going to worry us, especially because the 3 centre-backs, I think, it's only my opinion, but I think when you play 3 centre-halves, the 3 centre-halves, 2 of them need to be pacey. Because if the wing-backs get caught up the pitch, the ball comes down the channel, they're going to have to get out to recover it. The central defender in the 3 probably doesn't need to be that quick, but none of our defenders are very quick, apart from Odesina. And Odesina doesn't seem to be rated by Mark Hughes at all. He seems to be 4th or 5th choice centre-back. So we're going to play 3 centre-halves who aren't very quick. And if they're going to be exposed. I think they're going to be exposed regularly. We've signed a guy called Ash Taylor, who people laughed at us when we signed him. Walsall fans were like, why have you signed him? He's dreadful. He did all right at Kilmarnock, but everywhere else he's played, they seem to just laugh at him. And he's been shocking in pre-season. I don't know why we've signed another centre-half who's not got any pace about him and who can't play the ball. We need a ball-playing centre-half. If we're going to play 3 centre-halves, we need the ball-playing ability and we need pace, not just 3 big lumps. If you're playing 4-4-2, it's not so bad. And I think Stubbs and Platt would have been brilliant in a 4-4-2 together. I think they would have been absolutely fantastic, one of the best pairings in the division. But no, we've changed to 3 centre-halves. And we don't have 3 centre-halves with pace or ball-playing ability, so we're going to struggle. Combine that with the left-hand side, that's where the negativity is coming from, I think. I can see why Hughes has done it, because he wants to be more on the front foot, and he wants to get 2 up front, not leave Cook exposed on his own. So you can see why he's done it, but it's going to cause us problems, I think. So that's where the worry's coming from, especially with the strength of the division as well. People can see how strong League 2 is going to be.
So you're very excited then, yeah?
There are positives because we've strengthened the midfield, and the midfield was weak last year. So I'm pleased that we've signed McDonald and we've signed Pattison. I think they'll be good players for us. And getting someone else up there with Cook should help as well. So we've retained Cook and we've retained Lewis. So signing McDonald and Pattison and retaining Cook and Lewis are good bits of business. But it's the change in formation that's causing people to worry.
Yeah.
And like I say, I just wish we'd stayed with that flat back four with Platt and Stubbs. And I think adding Pattison and McDonald to that and keeping Cook and Lewis, I think we'd have done really well. But no, we've changed it, and it's gonna cause us problems, I think.
How key is keeping Lewis? Given all the links with, but how key is keeping Harry Lewis? Given how strongly linked he was with Barnsley, for example.
Yeah, I mean, him and Cook were the standouts for us last year. Without Cook's goals and without Lewis in goal, I worried about. I think I said on the last pod, I think I worried about where we'd have been. Lewis has been really good. He's done an interview since coming back from Spain from the pre-season tour, and he was asked about it by Jamie Rayner on Radio Leeds, and he's been really honest, really straightforward. Said he's not going to leave unless it's right for Bradford City. He's more than happy where he is. So he's not going to put the club under any pressure. Now, that was really refreshing to hear because he's really popular at City and he's been really good for us last year. He didn't have his best game at Carlisle away in the playoffs. That's probably his worst he played for us. But throughout the whole season, he got us so many points. It's massive. Him and Cook were just absolutely massive for us last year. So to hold on to them is probably the best bit of business we could have done. And then obviously adding Patterson and McDonald in midfield's helped as well. But Lewis, yeah, huge. We have got an option on him. This is the last year of his contract, but we've got another year option on him as well. So maybe they can say, look, we'll set the option next summer, but if we get an offer, you can go next summer if we don't go up. Maybe they'll do something like that. I don't know. But yeah, massive. Absolutely massive.
I rate Clark Adorni. He came through at Leeds. They were well thought of at Leeds, and then he kept Barnsley up, didn't he? If you remember, on that desperate last day. Did they beat West Brom at West Brom, I think, or something like that, when they were still going for automatic promotion? I think it was in the season we got promoted. If I remember
he's a bit of a cult hero at Barnsley, costing that goal. But again, they all say he's an attacking player. He's not a wing back. So he's
a very attacking player. Yeah,
he's a winger, not a left back.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping, and I hope we play him there because I think he could do well there, based on what the club's fans have said. But if we play him at left wing back, then I'm worried.
When you say about Ridehouse and not being quick, he wasn't quick when he was 21 and he played at town. So he's definitely not going to get quick when he's 33 or whatever he is.
Yeah.
So
I like him. I think he's a solid defender.
He knows his job, mate. He's like, in terms of defending wise, but he's just not quick, and that I totally agree with you. If your wing backs don't come back, because we play a 3-5-2. If your wing backs don't work hard enough, and your centre backs, we have the same problem. Our centre backs are not quick. You get caught out by these quick, tricky attackers. And in League Two, because they haven't got the quality to rely on their own ability, they get caught out even more. I can see why you're coming from that angle. Have you signed Critchlow?
No, he's gone to Peterborough.
Oh, he's gone to Peterborough. I'm shocked at that, because I thought you should have been straight in for him. Paid whatever he wanted.
Talking, to be fair, on the end of season when we did, obviously a couple of months or so ago now, and at the time Critchlow was being linked with that Peterborough move, and we were all like, if he stays at Bradford, it's a great one, but obviously that lure of League One and Peterborough and the money they can offer, and to be fair, I imagine the lure of being able to use Peterborough as a stepping stone is probably what's driven that move.
It'd be another one as well. It would have been brilliant in a 3, because he's obviously left-footed. He's got good ball playing ability, and he's more pace than any of our other centre halves. So he'd have been perfect. But yeah, I think he always had ambitions to play in League One. He did us a favour, really, probably by going to League Two again last year, because he'd been in League One with was it not Swindon?
Yeah,
Swindon and Plymouth.
Plymouth and Swindon, and he'd not had a great time at Plymouth, because I think he got a bit homesick. But at Swindon, he played particularly well. He was a great defender at Swindon. I liked him. I'm just shocked that City didn't push the boat out and go, right, he needs to be our number one, especially since you kept Cook, because you're not worried about intact.
Yeah, it's interesting because Critchlow was clearly the best centre half we had last year as an individual player. But as a partnership, I always thought Platt and Stubbs at League Two level were perfect. So that was we had our best defensive performances with Platt and Stubbs, but Critchlow as an individual was the best player for them in the back four. So it was interesting. Like I say, in a 3, he'd have been perfect, but I think he always had ambitions to go higher and try himself at League One again.
Big pressure on you lads this year, I think, to go. You to be honest, in the League Two season, because I don't think it's as competitive as what it might have been.
I disagree.
I don't think. I think it's a strong division, but surely now there's big pressure on Mark Hughes to get Bradford out of that division. I think.
There's different levels, right? But I think as strong as we all think the Championship is, League Two is for its level, if that makes sense. I think League Two is going to be ridiculously competitive this season. Yeah. I think you could basically just throw a dartboard at any one of 12 teams and be like, yep, that's a viable title.
The teams that come up from the national level are instantly towards the top 6. So it just makes the strength for targeting towards promotion so much more difficult. I mean, Wrexham and Notts County are both going to be up there. They are. Yeah. 100%.
Then you've got to factor in Gillian, for example, who have had money to burn for the last 6 months since January. Stockport will be up there. Salford will want to be up there again. Barrow, I know, Steve, when we were talking in one of the group chats, he kind of dumbed them down, but Pete Wilde did a great job at Barrow last season, and he's made some good signings, so could really see them being around that playoff spot as well. Honestly, it's such a strong League Two this year.
It's stronger than League One, I think.
Yeah, I actually think I think League Two. Well, in fact, let me rephrase that. I think for Bradford City, I think the expectations are probably less than what they were last year. I think the players that City signed last year were probably, in inverted commas, more proven. I think this year, like Tyler Smith, I think are unproven. I think Patterson, to an extent, slightly unproven at this level, but he's one of the best signings for me in League Two. And like you said, I agree with you guys. And I think sometimes when you go into a back three, it compensates because he doesn't trust his defenders too much. He's a 2, and that's why he goes as a 3. I think your wing options, I'm surprised. I think you look incredibly weak, and the only one you really got is Chapman.
And we know what's going on with him.
And yeah, and then you look at teams around, like you said, Stephen, look at Stockport. Stockport have bought Nick Powell. I mean, he's too good for League Two. Ibo Torre from Salford, he's too good as well. Billy Chadwick, he's come from he was at Gateshead. So they're recruiting really well. Gillingham have rebuilt the squad. Doncaster's starting to rebuild the squad. I think City, I think expectations, like I said, I don't think are as high. Don't get me wrong, a size for the club size, they should be absolutely challenging. But I think to reach a playoffs, in fairness, for City is actually going to be a good season this season.
Do you know what? I think you have to distinguish between what we expect and where we think we should be versus where we think we can actually be. Because as the size of a club, like Jay was saying about Leeds, we've had it everyone's cup final in League Two for so long now. And we all believe we should be in League One at least. But when you actually look at the competition and what we've done this summer, I don't think we expect ourselves to be competing in League One next year, because we can see that half of the division is going to have promotion aspirations, and probably the top half of the division that has those promotion aspirations could easily compete at the bottom half of League One now. So
if Wrexham are challenging for that title in League Two with the players that they've signed, that's just ridiculous. I mean, they're just unbelievable. Their side, they are like top end League One signings, really.
That's when as well, guys. Sorry, Lou. That's when you are one of them clubs in that position, you're dealing with a set of expectations that the other clubs that are challenging aren't. So like a Carlisle, they don't have that pressure. So they can have even slightly less than you've got in terms of quality in the team. But the expectation, the pressure, the mental stress that the players have to go through on a week-by-week basis ain't there. I remember the season before last, I went to Bradford quite a lot when I was working for Stockport. And the crowd and the atmosphere was so tense that you could feel it, and the players can obviously feel it. So, like, I definitely think you're fighting up against that as well. Like, even having Mark Hughes as a manager, as an example, creates a pressure in itself.
Yeah,
I just hope that in a way, having all these bigger teams in there that are going to have promotion aspirations, it kind of takes that cup final thing away when they come to Valley Parade a little bit, and they think, well, it's not the only big game we've got this season, and we've been there for however long we've been there now. Maybe it's worn off a bit. You've got to hope, but
I mean, what about then, Gaz? I mean, I'm saying it because I know others have said it. I'm not Hughes' greatest fan either. But if we don't get off to a good start for the first quarter of the season, does Hughes stay? Does he go? Is that the right thing to do for City? Because I know that this has been a thing in the past with City where you've had as many managers as golf clubs, haven't you, in your caddy? So what does that look like?
I don't think if we don't go up next year, it'll be gone at end of the season. I 100% expect that. It's
do you think he'll last a season?
Sorry, mate.
Do you think he'll last a season?
Well, that's it. It depends how we're doing. If we're in touching distance of promotion, I can't see him getting rid of him. If you're in touching distance at playoffs, but if you're dropping away from playoffs and you're, I don't know, lower mid-table, then he's going to be under huge pressure. I just don't see how you can keep him, because, as we were saying before, we all expect to be higher than we are. We all think we should be higher than we are, but can we actually achieve it? And looking at us at the moment, I don't know if we can. So I agree. I think he'll be gone if we don't go up, and how long he lasts this season probably depends on how close, how much we're competing for that top 7. If we're in and around the top 7, then he'll stay. But if we're not, then he's going to be. He probably won't last the season out.
And I think that's what we all said. I know that we all chat in our group as well, but it doesn't need that many tweaks for City to have a decent season again. I say decent, but for a lot of City fans, that is obviously promotion. But like I say, if you win 3 more home games like last season, you're promoted. There's no doubt about that. So there's not actually much to tweak. And I think the real interesting thing is, how do you start off with it? Potentially 3 at the back, or is he just completely had a fantastic poker face and he goes out and plays 4-4-2, which would be unbelievable if he did something like that. But I think that's going to be a real interesting one, because if he's either got to trust it and back it, or he goes back to the tried and tested that it worked well for him last season.
Yeah, the problem with it is we don't have the wingers to change it up now.
That's the issue, yeah.
He's got rid of, I always thought the problem last season was we were playing 4-2-3-1 and we didn't get enough out of the 3 players behind Cook. There was not enough output there at all. No assists, no goals. And like you just said a few minutes ago, Chapman looks like our only winger and he's injured till October. And then he's got this betting charge hanging over him as well. So Clark O'Dowd hopefully will come good if we do need to go to wingers. But the worry is that if 3-5-2 doesn't work, which I'm sceptical about, we're going to struggle to change it up because we don't have the wingers to change it up.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, we'll wait and see, won't we?
Oh dear.
Such optimism.
Well, we don't know, do we? Because they said they're going to bring a couple of loanees in. You get a couple of decent loans in, a decent left wing back, and a decent winger on loan, and a centre half with a bit of pace. 2 or 3 of those, and 2 or 3 decent signings, and it might all change. I know we're looking at the loan market, but obviously
there's still time, isn't there? There's still, the rest of the month for the transfer window.
They said they expect those deals to go through later on.
And that's one good thing with you guys last season. Your loan signings were actually probably one of the best in the league. The likes of Banks and Tyreek Wright as well. They did lift you.
Yeah.
That's the plus point that you can. It seems like you've got good contacts at a very good level to bring those players in. But like I say, it depends on what system Hughes wants to play, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think like you said, Hughes and Sparks have both said that the loans will come later in the window, which is often the case, isn't it? You look towards transfer deadline day and your loans arrive then. So if we can get, like I said, 2 or 3 decent loans like we did last year, then everyone will be happy again, I think. So yeah, just wait and see. Just hope we don't lose to Basket Case Crawley on Saturday, because we lose there. That's going to be terrible, isn't it? Our start to the season looks tough as it is. We've got some really tough games at start. We need to win on Saturday at Crawley.
Just a quick question: which manager gets sacked first from our teams? Do we think
Millington?
Won't be Warnock.
Millington.
Oh, you said it now, Steve.
I think
That's why.
going back to Cornwall in a heartbeat.
By the way, that's why I love this podcast, because at one end you've got Jay saying we're going to be champions, and then at the other end we've got Gaz, and then at the other end we've got Gaz that's saying, "Oh, it's doom and gloom, it's 3-5-2." You're like, yeah, what is it? Aren't you? What's his name? Dave Bassett, aren't you? England manager.
Mike Bassett.
Mike Bassett.
Not Dave Bassett.
Dave Bassett was a manager, though.
He was Wimbledon manager. Yeah, Mike Bassett. You're like 3-5-2. That's it.
I think it will be Hughes, personally.
Yeah, I do.
I could see you going.
Yeah.
It won't surprise me, but yeah, let's see how we get on. Like I say, we never know, do we?
It won't be Warnock because he'll retire.
Manager swap.
You're going to have loads of Bradford fans in comments now saying, why have you got that negative Norman on? I am renowned on Twitter for being a bit negative, so yeah. I say negative, not negative, just realistic.
Yeah. It won't be Warnock because he'll retire. It won't be Farker because Leeds fans all think he's God. And it won't be Bradford Park Avenue's manager because nobody knows who he is.
Yeah,
you leave Bowers alone, you.
Bradford City legend.
Matt Bauer, who we're hoping to get on the show soon.
No,
he's not watching.
And we're not on the same night as Steve now.
Absolutely.
I say that in very tongue-in-cheek. I obviously know who he is, but I've said that in tongue-in-cheek.
Here we go.
Is it Dave Bassett?
Onwards to Halifax.
Yes. Dave, talk to us. Halifax FA Trophy winners last season. Chris Millington, second season. What do we think? Playoffs, potentially? That's what I tweeted out earlier. Halifax Town playoffs, ? Or is that pushing it a bit?
With there being 6 playoff places and 4 relegation places, essentially all 24 teams are playing for something. They're either playing for promotion or they're looking over the shoulder towards relegation. I'd like to think we're going to stay in touch with the top 7. Depends how the new players bed in, because every year or every couple of years we have the same cycle. We sign unknowns like Jess Deborah. We sign unknowns like Kean Spence, and once the contracts are up, they just don't sign an extension and they leave for nothing, or we get compensation because they're under 23 and it's a minimal amount. So it's just that same formula. It worked under Pete Wild. He almost worked a miracle, and then he left for Barrow, who, Barrow. I've classed us as a bigger club than Barrow, but unfortunately they're in League Two, so they have that a draw at the moment. Yeah, I hope to be in top half of the table. If we slip down into bottom half, I'm hoping we're not going to be too far away from it. I mean, there's been loads of comments, mostly by Leeds fans in the comments, that are worrying that they haven't got enough strikers, and that's my only concern at the Shea currently. We've got Aaron Cosgrove and Rob Harker, who did very well actually last year. He got double figures, and he only played something like just over 1,000 minutes, but he bagged 10 goals. So his goals to minute record's like incredible. It were better than all your Mullins and Langstaffs, who obviously went up with Wrexham and Notts Counties. We can't have another season where we score 49 goals in the league. I mean, we had the joint highest clean sheet record. No surprise with Sam Johnson in goal. Yeah, it just depends how many goals we score this year. I know it's a concern for most of the supporters. And as usual with fan forums, it goes from like over-the-top optimism, a bit like what you've just been saying. It goes from over-the-top optimism to people that are just like, we will be relegated this year and we won't come back. If we were to get relegated, I would be of that opinion. I think it'd take us a long time to get out of the North. We've been very, very fortunate that we've only had 3 seasons at North level, and twice we've been promoted straight back out of it. Oh, well, not straight back out of it. We've been promoted out of it 2 out of 3 times. Like, we went down and came straight back up in 2016-17.
That was the year that Guiseley relegated you, wasn't it, on the final day?
We just needed to win a zone game. That's the way I looked at it. We had Macclesfield at home who had nothing to play for.
David's doing very well in not to bite at my fishing here. He's doing really well, Dave. I'll give you that.
I mean, a few years ago, Guiseley would have meant something, but now I'm just like, who?
Leave Dave alone, Chris. He's done well this far in that absolute sweatbox. So just leave him. just leave the poor lad alone. Let him talk about Halifax.
Talk us through the ins and outs, Dave. Talk us through the ins and outs.
What of what we've just been talking about all this season?
Well, the transfers.
To be fair, though, I mean, you've retained a lot of good youngsters, haven't you? Millie Alley and Capello. And I mean,
they're still under contract. Their contracts run out at the end of this
next year.
So,
Bye.
Next year later if they're any good. But yeah, you're right. Millie Alley had a real purple patch towards the end of the season, and luckily nobody's took a punt on him. He's had a bit of an underwhelming pre-season by all accounts, but. Yeah, I mean, for all I've said, we've lost a lot of good players. We still do have some good players on us books. We do go into the season with 5 or 6 injuries, though. We signed a trialist from Tranmere, or had been released by Tranmere, called Florente Hotte.
He was a rock star.
We had him on trial, and we've signed him. And as soon as we've signed him, it's like, I've got an hamstring injury. I'm out till September. Tom Clark's got knee problems. I think he had some personal problems last year. We've sort of got a bit of a walking wounded going into this season, and it's going to be a real tough.
That's never.
We're finally at home on the first game of the season, which seems something of a rarity. We must have been away for most of it. I mean, we touched on it last season. We were away in all the cup competitions as well, so it's nice to start at home. But it'll give us a marker of where we are. Because it's Bromley who made the playoffs, so we're in and around the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Again, because we weren't in that picture. I sort of lost interest in what were going on because Wrexham and Notts County were like 1,000,000 points in front of everybody. The camera crews were there. Ryan Reynolds were there. I didn't care. You know, they come to the end, they lost. That's what mattered. Again, Millie Alley just tore them to bits. Absolutely to bits. They only lost 3 games all season. One of us was us.
I hope they put that in the documentary, by the way.
Oh, I hope.
Put Dave's face shouting on the documentary, like, come on, facts!
Yeah, if I'm going to put that on a billboard out, Dave says, I don't care.
Yeah.
That was magic. That was it. It was the FA Trophy win and then beating Wrexham. It was like in the same week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it all happened all at the same time. Again, we were rescued by a Millie Alley strike in like the 94th minute at Altrincham. We won the penalties, and yeah, I think we had Wrexham soon after, and then we had York on Bank Holiday Monday after Good Friday, which were Wrexham. We beat them 3-0 pretty comprehensively. They were a pretty poor team, but York on paper have recruited well this season, and we're probably going to lose as title as the highest placed Yorkshire non-league team.
Yeah, but it was about 36 players, haven't they? So
they've disappeared now.
We have got about 36 players of York after all.
Yeah, they've got some going, haven't they? And again, on paper, they've signed a good crop of players, but Altrincham have actually. Altrincham have signed quite well in our league as well, on paper.
Very good. Yeah, they've done really well, haven't they? I think especially over the last few years, they've built up to be a very established National League team. I think you're right in what you said earlier as well, mate. I think the competition's very strong in that league. And I think people are expecting Wrexham and Notts County to do really well this year. And I think a lot of people are saying the same about Chesterfield and Oldham, aren't they?
Most teams that get promoted out of the fifth division tend to go into League Two because it's almost a bit like going from the Championship into the Premier League. You have to really earn your place. Like, you don't tend to win our league if you're in millions of pounds of debt. Like, it prepares you to go into the league, and that's, I mean, again, Crawley were backed, very well financially. Burton Albion were. I mean, I'm going back 10 or 12 years, but they go straight up to League One. There's a lot of teams that just go through both because they've had to. They've really had to go either back to basics or they've had to clear some debt and come back, and they come back in a really strong position. Like health-wise, there's very few basket cases get promoted out of the conference or the National League or whatever you want to call it, the fifth tier.
Yeah, and Southend probably make up the talking point there.
Southend may not. I mean, I think Southend are going to start the season.
Yeah, but they've been given that extension, haven't they?
Yeah, they've had some kind of extension, but they get 6,000 at home every week. You know what I mean? How's a club that was in the Championship 10 years ago found itself in this situation? I mean, Scunthorpe went down this season. They've recruited well for their level.
They were in trouble
on paper, but. Yeah, this is why I said earlier almost I don't have any interest in the Championship. I only ever really take in media about my own club. Like, I'm either doing something myself or I'm editing something, I'm looking at something, I'm reading rumours. I'm just totally wrapped up in my own club. I mean, Jess Deborah still hasn't found another club.
Yeah, I was going to come to that because he's been linked with a few. I'd seen him linked with Barnsley, and apparently that move fell through. I'd seen him linked with Lincoln, to be fair, my own club. And nothing's ever materialised there. Why the hell hasn't anyone signed him yet? Because surely for League Two, League One, he'd be a really good signing. You'd
think so. I mean, he was carrying an injury, I think, into the FA Trophy final. We had to substitute him, or he came on as a sub. My memory of that day is a little bit hazy because I was just enjoying being there. But he's failed a couple of medicals, and I can only think it's because he's got some kind of injury. I mean, somebody on Twitter, and you know what Twitter's like, it's an absolute Wild West, put a well, not even potentially, it was a libelous comment on why he was failing medicals, so I won't go into it, but if you know, you know. But if he don't get a club before, I don't know, I mean, the transfer window shuts on the last day of August, there's still 4 weeks to go.
He's quite pacey, isn't he, Jesse Deborah?
He's pretty well-rounded. He's a quicker centre-back than...
Yeah, Gaz is all over this now.
Is he left-sided or right-sided?
Yeah, I think he's left-sided.
Left-sided, because I think he's left-back as well, can't he?
Gaz is licking his lips. Look at that.
I don't think we've ever played him as a wing-back, but yeah, I think he can fill in at right-back.
Can we make this the first ever transfer arranged by the West Yorkshire Football Show?
Can we do it? Shall I tweet it out now?
Gaz will sort his wages out. Packet of honey and crisps and a pot pie. Play at the Valley.
But admittedly, the first transfer business Halifax did was to replace Jess Deborah when we signed Adam Senior, who was somebody we had on loan, and it were a transfer that's gone down very well. We signed him on his release from Bolton Wanderers. I think he made a handful. When we sign league players, we tend to get them, and it's like they've made 2 or 3, what would it be, Papa John's Trophy games, and they've debuted in the league for 10 minutes. We always sign young players. We could potentially have the youngest starting 11 in the National League starting on Saturday, and that's a combination of injuries and just the model the club plays. So,
any more Love Island contestants this year, Dave?
Let's hope not. Let's hope not.
Dave's on Love Island, isn't he?
Yeah, that's where I am currently.
Not enough, doesn't it? Where he is
hammering like a back room.
No wonder he's not.
Lovely stuff. Just before, Jason, I know you have to shoot off, mate. We did say, Chris, didn't we, last year, that we're going to sign everyone at a non-league team.
I can't remember whether it was actually on the podcast or just after we finished and we were all still chatting afterwards about assigning everyone that is an EFL fan a lower down the pyramid non-league side. Now, I was talking to Steve earlier. He's already plumped for Ossett simply because they're on your doorstep, pretty much, Brownie.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lewis has got. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit torn as to where I'm going with mine, but I reckon Steeton, just because geographically that was the side that I've lived closest to for the most part.
So me and Lewis can't share Park Ave, no, because it's literally round the corner from me, and I go there quite a bit anyway.
I mean, I appreciate you do quite a bit there, but you need to go lower. We're talking lower down the pyramid here. So if you get a random chance to go down, I mean, Steve, I'm guessing for you, Gulk is your obvious one.
Well, I'm torn really.
Emily as well.
I think I'm going to go Emily. I think I'm going to go Emily because I think they really have got a good chance of going up this year. Yeah. And then they play some bloody good football under the management and chairman there. So yeah, Emily for me.
What a glory hunter!
I get over to camp.
What did he say?
He said, "What a glory hunter!"
What do you mean? Hang on, I support Huddersfield Town Football Club. I'm not a Leeds fan, am I?
Come on, then, Jay.
I get over to Campion quite a bit as well, and they're having some right success. So that's always a fun little ground to go and go watch football in. They make you a burger in a George Foreman grill.
Oh, nice!
Yeah.
Hey, that's the healthiest way to go. Yeah.
Jay, who are you picking? And you can't have 3 clubs. You've got to pick.
I love Park Ave. Like they're my second love, aren't they? No, I'll go for Campion. Campion.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So Campion, Emily. We've got Bradford Park Avenue.
Me.
Any preferences for you, mate? I mean, am I right in thinking you live just over the wrong side of the border?
Yeah, I don't really know any non-league teams around here. I would have said Steeton or Silsden round by where you are. So
I mean, to be fair, Silsden would be following the money, but would also be a very sensible choice because of that.
Yeah, that's probably. I grew up in Skipton, so I'll probably say Silsden.
What a glory unto you are, Gaz. Jesus.
Hey, to be fair, they've lost both of their first 2 games of the season. We'll come on to that later. And I guess for you, Dave, like besides Halifax, who have you got geographically around you as a club? Brighouse is the obvious, yeah.
I'm involved with Brighouse Town as well.
So there we go.
When it's been broached before, it was a little bit like we can't really do them because Liversidge and Ossett are at that level, and it won't be fair. So I've always kept that under my hat. Because I know it weren't. I know you said it'd be unfair to give them the coverage if we can't do it for everyone.
Whoa, Dave, you say what you want, lad. Right? These two muppets at the top don't run the podcast. We run the podcast. So you say what you want. If you want Brighouse, you have Brighouse.
Yeah, Brighouse are actually nearer than Halifax Town, actually.
And if I'm right in thinking, they're in the same league as Ossett?
Yeah, and Liversidge, who've just been relegated.
Yeah, so there we go. So at least we've got a West Yorkshire football show derby there between Brownie and Dave. A couple of others elsewhere as well. And Lou, I mean, you just get to all the non-league clubs, mate. So I dread to think how long your list of arguments for who you could pick would be.
I can only stick with that after what Brownie said. I'm Mr. Farsley Celtic. I'm sticking with Avenue everywhere.
After that insult for you to start with.
Lovely stuff. Dave, just before we move on to Farsley Celtic, actually, Chris Millington, obviously last year, a bit of a difficult year, but then triumphed at the end. Bit of silverware, the only silverware across the region. Do you see it going well for him? I know, Chris, you jibed in there thinking he might be the first to actually get the sack this season. But what's your overall thoughts of Millington?
We need to have a better 10 or 11 games than we started last season. Because, I mean, we lost to Radcliffe recently in a friendly. It was the first time we'd been beaten since, I think it was the 21st of February. And, I mean, I know we've had, obviously, pre-season and stuff that would extend that. But that's a run of, like, close to, it must be nearly 15, 16 games off the top of my head, including pre-season. And it was something that Millington, after the game, pointed out early doors within that. And I think a few supporters might have forgotten that. You know, we lost to Chesterfield away, which is no great embarrassment. I think somebody put on the forum earlier, we've only lost twice in his last 17 league games, but we need to start well. But if you offered me a draw now, I would take it. We've got a couple of injuries going into the season, which is nothing new. We just seem to have a conveyor belt of injuries. We have players that come back and break down again. So it's nothing new, but I think if you offer us a draw for Saturday, we would take it. But it needs to start better than the first 11 games. We sort of started poorly, picked up before Christmas, sort of slumped again, and then we peaked again. And obviously we won the FA Trophy and all that went with it. But yeah, it was peaks and troughs last year, and it was enough to finish 11th, which was 10 points outside the playoffs. I think 12 outside relegation. So we did finish absolutely bang in the middle. I mean, up until I think 3 games, the playoffs were still not impossible, which was insane. But
yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to bid farewell to our 2 championship boys, Jason, Steve. Much appreciated. I look forward to future shows where we're going to hopefully have a little maybe Monday or Tuesday night championship review, see how our lads have done. But really appreciate you both coming on. It's been a pleasure as always. And we'll speak to you again soon.
It's all right. We'll have to have a private boxing match now. See you in a minute, Jeff.
Oh, hang on. Just we can stream that.
Yeah, leave that on.
Yeah,
Make a bit of money out of that one, surely.
Hang on, I think Jason's done a bit of boxing in his time, though, Steve.
I have indeed.
But I'm a Yorkshire pudding, so it's fine.
Represent Park Ave for us, will you, Lou?
Well done, mate.
See you in a bit.
Take care, guys.
See you in a bit, lads.
See you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Just before we fully finish on Halifax Day, I've just been kind of looking at that start to the season. Obviously, last season the start wasn't great, shall we say. It's a difficult-looking opening 3 in particular. Obviously, Bromley at home, Bournemouth away, and then Oldham away. That Oxford City game on the 19th looks pretty key in the early stage of the season.
yeah, it is a tough start on paper. So it will set a marker as to where we're at. I mean, nothing's won or lost usually prior to Christmas, but certainly nothing's won or lost in August, September. But it'll give us a gauge of where we are, obviously balancing those injuries. But I prefer being the underdog. Like, I think we've just been the underdog most of the time throughout its history, other than when we reformed and we had to come up a few leagues. I prefer to be the underdog. So Oxford City at home, I don't like it because on paper, again, we're sort of like firm favourites to win that game. I'd sooner go to Oldham away with people not expecting anything from us and, beat them. But
Yeah.
I just don't know. We're a little bit light up front, which I touched on, but it all depends on how many goals Harker and Cosgrove are going to score from us and the kind of service they're going to get, because we've got a lot of pace in the team, Ali, and we've signed another lad that's, I think his name's like Uluwabore. So we've let Manny Dezuaru go to Hartlepool and we've replaced him with an equally difficult surname.
Got him one tongue twister and replaced
I
him with
dreaded
another.
saying that surname for the entirety of last season. I was like, oh no, I can't do it.
I refer to him as Manny D if I had to.
Yeah.
Or just Manny. But I mean, he got 13 goals last year, and it was his longest run as like a starter. Most teams at this level bring him on as sort of like an impact sub. So I don't know how Hartlepool United are going to utilise him. But
I've got to be honest, he's a player that I was talking to Lewis a couple of weeks ago, perhaps before he had signed for Hartlepool. And obviously with me working for Rochdale, I'd looked at him and thought he'd be the ideal kind of player for a club like Rochdale, just come down from League Two, not a huge budget, looking to rebuild. And lo and behold, he's gone to the other side that came down from League Two in Hartlepool.
Well, I mean, Gilmore went to Rochdale, and I think he'll be sort of like a steady away midfielder. I'd have been happy if we'd have kept him. He had I like a lot of our players. He had a good second half to the season, and I think he was just getting into his rhythm and just starting to click. But Gilmore's made that decision. I mean, for whatever reason, he has gone to Rochdale. Again, they've just been relegated, and again, on paper, they are a better side. I mean, I want to say he's a Lancastrian. I think most of his clubs have been that way. Like he's played at Tranmere and other places.
He's been at Tranmere and Stockport, hasn't he? So both northwestern clubs.
Even at this level, for some players, unless the money's ridiculous, it's still all about location. A lot of the London clubs in our league, Dagenham, Bromley, whoever you want to name, they tend to rotate all the same, roughly the same players will all play for that crop of teams. People like Angelo Balanta play for like Bournemouth, like they sort of just trade players amongst themselves and just hope hope something sticks. And I mean, it has done for Bournemouth and Bromley recently, certainly, and obviously Sutton won our league the
year before last
season.
That was it. Lockdown season.
Yeah, lockdown season. Yeah.
Yeah.
There seems to be a real dearth of real good number 9s at the moment. I think in kind of a top ends of the West Yorkshire kind of region. You know, we're looking. I think probably an exception at the moment is Andy Cook, probably at City. But you know,
Yeah.
Cook in his previous years has struggled sometimes to get the odd goal here and there and settle down. But you look at yourselves at Leeds, Brownie, needing a number 9. Huddersfield, might need us talking about striker. Yourself, David, at Halifax talking about getting a striker. We've been saying at Avenue and stuff, and Farsley will come on to later on. But there seems to be a real good crop of players about, but strikers seem to be that absolute $1 million question of who's out there to real take that team up, because without a 25, 30 goal striker, sorry to say this, guys, you're not going to get promoted, are you, really?
How did we not get promoted last year?
Well, but it's right, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Imagine if you didn't have the goals. Imagine if you didn't have the goals of that, So,
exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, spot on.
Lovely. Well, let's take a look further down the pyramid then. Lewis, we're going to come to yourself. Farsley Celtic. Massive change in the summer. Russ Wilcox leaving the club. Where does that leave them going forward? A new management structure in place. How do you think they're going to fare going forward?
I sound like a broken record compared to a lot of the other lads have said, but I think it's a real unknown for Farsley. I don't think anybody's really knowing what to expect from the team, because they're having an overhaul both on the pitch, off the pitch, management, team, pretty much everything is going to be looking completely different. And even to the pitch actually looks pretty decent, to be fair. I've not seen it yet, which how long that lasts will be amazing, because that pitch at Throttle Nest is never conducive to good football. So I think Farsley are going to be in for a season a bit of struggle. I think under Russ Wilcox they were phenomenal to stay up. He got that team going with a real good bunch of lads who were tough, experienced, and quite hard into that league. Looking at it from the outside in, I've not seen him yet, to be honest. But the signings that they're making, Clayton Donaldson being player managers, a real change in the way that club's been run and managed, is going to be really interesting. Danny Ellis is there; he's got the experience, but it's who you'd probably expect both to be playing at the moment, because for quite a young team. But when they're losing likes of Frank Mullen to Scarborough, Dave Sayers, Adam Clayton to Silsden, Lewis Buttroy to Gainsborough, they've lost a real good core of a team, and they're having to rebuild that. So yeah, sorry to Farsley fans watching, but I predict a bit of a season of a struggle. I think the only plus side at the moment is that one, they still remain in the division, so arguably taking Halifax out of it kind of full time, they're the best part-time West Yorkshire team in the region, from where they used to be quite a number of years ago. But I actually don't think the league's as strong as what it has been in previous years, so they've got a little bit of advantage, in my opinion, to stay up.
Yeah, Gaz Clayton Donaldson. Do you remember him from City? How was he there?
I always wished that we were linked with him about 10 years before we actually signed him. I think it was before he went to Brentford. When where had he been scoring for? I can't remember who he'd been scoring for off the top of my head.
He'd been at York a long time, hadn't he?
Yeah, he scored a lot of goals in League Two, and I can't remember who it was for. And we were linked with signing him, and he didn't. He went. I think he went to Brentford, and obviously did really well. But when he came back to us, he's Bradford lad, so there was always that sort of thought that he might come back one day. When he first signed for us, he looked really good, and then he got injured. And when he came back from injury, he just weren't the same.
It was Crew.
Crew
Before Brentford. Good old Google.
Yeah, that was it. And he did really well. But when we signed him, the plan was to play him and Vaughan up front, him and James Vaughan up front. And they looked really good together until Clayton Donaldson got injured. And then we did what Bradford always do and started playing a man who's not a target man as a target man. And we did it with Vaughan, and Vaughan struggled, and he couldn't do it. And then we tried it with Owen Doyle, and everyone was just giving Owen Doyle dogs abuse. They were like, well, has he ever been a target man? No, he's not. So why are you giving him dogs abuse when ball's coming at him up here? So, yeah, we missed him when he got injured, and he worked quite the same when he got back. But, he's had a great career, hasn't he? And I'm glad he got to play for us eventually, because hometown club and that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think also for him last season, he was top goal scorer in the NPL Premier at Gainsborough. So he still got that habit of scoring. He knows where the back of net is. And I think for Farsley, that'll come in really handy. But it's how often is he playing compared to managing?
I do wonder. after a season like he had last year at Gainsborough, you would think the desire to get as many minutes on the pitch as he can would still be there. Because I say, like finishing the division below as top goal scorer, he's going to be. There's a chance he could do quite well at the National League North level. It just means he's then. And to be fair, this is possibly half the reason for having quite the extended kind of backroom staff. Obviously, Danny Ellis, Pav Singh. Can't remember the name of the goalkeeping coach, but he's
Morgan.
Yeah, that's it, Morgan. Yep. So this is the thing. It's quite a large backroom staff, perhaps, to be able to cater for the likes of Clayton Donaldson featuring up front or Danny Ellis featuring at the back.
Yeah, like we said, we don't really know what to expect from him, do we?
No.
It's a short career, isn't it? You know, anybody playing whatever level you're at, it's a short playing career. So I think he's probably got another 2 or 3 years left in him at kind of this level to still bang the goals in, and he can have a longer career, possibly coaching and managing. They've got to give him time. And I think that's the biggest thing, because having a complete overhaul off the pitch in terms of the coaching staff and management and players, I'll be very surprised if Farsley gels straight away. There's too much change for that to happen. And they've got Rush Hall in the first game, and Rush Hall are quite heavily tipped to go down after just being promoted. But, you know, it's a very small, very tight little ground. You know, not many teams in the National League North have played at a place like that. You know, and they're going to be there to kind of just upset everybody, you know, especially with what the bookies are saying. So I think Farsley are one of those teams that, you know, they've established themselves, you know, pretty decently and stayed in that division, just I think on pure battleness and stubbornness, and Russ Wilcox being phenomenal. And I think Wilcox is in the background, and I'll be surprised if he don't get a job soon. But for Farsley, they're going to be close, I think, to that relegation zone.
What do you think the reason was he left then? What, I mean, do we know kind of what
I don't know if they've just gone for a complete change in style and play and behind the scenes stuff. I'm not too sure, mate, to be fair. I think the chairman's come out doing a lot more regular communication with the fans, which I know has not been the case for the time that I've seen Farsley and been associated with kind of Avenue, that it's been quiet on that front. So he has been very regular weekly updates, which is it's kind of season's done and actually reset a bit. And like I said, they've absolutely got a chance to stay up. They absolutely have. You know, good players like Connor Branson's in there as well. Darren Stevenson, ex-City lad as well. He's been around non-league for a little bit. So it's going to be, I think it'll be a challenge. And if they get off to a good start, that will really help him. If they get off to a similar start to what Avenue did last season, they'll definitely be looking over the shoulder.
It's been around a long time, Darren Stevenson now. And I remember him breaking through at City, and didn't he go to Tranmere at one point as well?
Yeah, Tranmere. I mean, he's been quite a lot of places recently, like Stockport and
Chester.
Chorley and Southport, Chester, Curzon. He's had that many clubs in the past few years. He's not really settled down. So Halifax, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. As well.
Yeah. So, and I think for a player like Stevenson will, needs to play games quite regularly. He's that classic winger that needs confidence and playing games on a consistent basis to play well. I think when he's out of the team, that's when, obviously, he's moves clubs because it's hard for him to get into that flow. So, yeah, there's shoots of positivity for him. But like I say, I think they are going to be looking over the shoulder a little bit this season.
Just for anyone who's unaware, Danny Ellis was a very, very, very good non-league centre-back. Like, again, a little bit like what I touched upon, he's played for like a crop of non-league Yorkshire clubs. But yeah, when he was in his sort of footballing peak, he was a very, very good non-league centre-back. So having Donaldson almost to coach the attack and Ellis to coach and possibly, the pair of them play in defence, you've got to keep your fingers crossed that they can pass on that experience and the little bits of know-how and hope that it can be taken on board, or that they've got players that they can mould, or who have got just that little bit of quality that they can coach and develop. 100%. But if you think it's going to be a season of struggle, it doesn't sound.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're 100% right, Dave. I think Ellis, I agree. I think he's probably been one of, if not the best centre back in West Yorkshire for a long time. In his day, absolutely stood out, and he could have easily played at high level, probably gone pro.
Absolutely amazing at Guiseley. Just absolutely brilliant. Him and Simon Ainge as a pairing.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say, he played with Ainge at Guiseley, didn't he? I remember him playing together.
Did.
So yeah, when
And
you've
then
got
Mark Howard
experience
ended
like
up being
that,
fair to play not long after.
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. So they've got the experience that you're right, David. You know, Clayton up front and Danny at the back, so to speak. Tom Morgan's been in non-league for a long time as well. So they've definitely got that experience. It's
Tom Morgan's still playing. Right,
he's been on and off.
Tom Morgan.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that conundrum of like I said earlier, the minutes are going to play against giving the other lads a chance, and they haven't probably got the strength in depth that they might have done under Russ. And also they've got to use that lower market really well because Russ had his contacts at Scunthorpe and kind of South Yorkshire way as well. But I'm guessing, like we said earlier, like Clayton and Danny have definitely got probably as many contacts, if not probably more.
You mentioned it there then, they kick off their season. Rushall Olympic, obviously they got promoted last season. Interesting first game. Lewis, how do you see that one going?
It's already, as crazy it sounds, probably a bit of a 6-pointer for him because a lot of people might be expecting him to both be down there, which is absolutely mental to say on the first game of the season.
Absolutely mad, doesn't it? But I know what you mean.
But it's right, though, isn't it? I mean, Rushall are, you know, they are the absolute underdogs in that league. They haven't been at this level, I don't think, ever. And Farsley are probably one of those, like I say, teams in the National League North where people are hoping that they can beat them to send them down. I think if Farsley come away with a draw on the first day, probably a bouncing Dales Lane like that would be a real good result for Farsley. I mean, I think then they've got the likes of Charlie at home, and it's again how to use that pitch. You know, what is that pitch looking like at Farsley? On paper, it looks really good, and I know that Benleys have been there. I think even I think York played there recently, and even Mike Norton actually said, this is a good pitch, which has been not heard of at Farsley
for a long time. Friendly as well.
Did it?
I think so. I'm sure a few people commented that were there that said it looks a good pitch from the sidelines.
It honestly feels like a bit of a change in the universe somehow then, because let's be honest, that pitch at Farsley has been an absolute potato patch for years. And to be fair, they've adapted their style to it in previous years. So if this pitch is as good as everyone says it is, there could certainly be a stylistic change on the cards for Farsley this season.
Yeah, and again, that might be what Clayton and Danny and the guys are doing in the background. If that's what they want to do and have a different style of football, absolutely go for it. And it's going to be, like I say, they've not got much continuity from last season, so they are probably starting from a complete blank canvas, really. So yeah, it will be intriguing to see how they go. But like I say, I think if they stay up, that's another really, really good season for Farsley. I'd be very surprised if they're knocking on the playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair. Before we kind of wrap up, I do want to touch on just the rest of them only because whilst we sit here ahead of the AFL for the Northern Counties East League, the North West Counties League are already a couple of games in, of course, for the likes of Bradford Park Avenue and Guiseley, Ossett and Brighouse, they all start on the 12th, the weekend after. Liversidge as well, of course. Oh, how could I forget Liversidge, of course, as well, with the Ross McCormack news. I'm sure we will come to that in future shows without a doubt.
I was surprised he finally got out of his gates of his house to sign for Liversidge. He's been in there all that time.
Yeah, I mean, that's an absolutely mad story that if anyone hasn't seen, that former Leeds and Aston Villa forward and Fulham, Ross McCormack is now a player/director of football at Liversidge.
Just wow, yeah. I don't even know where to start with that.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere.
I know he did a little bit of training, and I think he were on trial at Aldershot of all places a couple of seasons ago, and then dropped off the radar again. Yeah. But he literally dropped from like being whatever it were, scoring 20-odd goals for Aston Villa, and then I don't know, like it seems like there was just like a period where nothing happened, and all of a sudden he popped up at Aldershot, and now he's at Liversidge.
It's an absolutely balmy story, isn't it?
Presumably he's moving back to the area, I would hazard a guess, and he's just like, how can he find a way back into football? But we'll certainly talk more about that in future weeks. But Lewis, I mean, we touched on it earlier. You and I have seen 9 games apiece across pre-season. We've started to now see competitive football. We were at Steeton on Tuesday night for their win against Bacup. I mean, it's been good for a start to have competitive football back. But the fact that there are I think we counted when we did our little non-league preview special, 20 sides across our region, across all the non-league divisions. It's mad. It's such a hotbed for non-league football.
Yeah, massive. And like I say, the friendlies that happen kind of around this Yorkshire area, West Yorkshire area, are tasty. A lot of them are not friendlies. There's a lot of bragging rights, in WhatsApp groups and at work the morning after. So yeah, it's been good to see league action. You can tell, but it's a bit of a difference. But don't underestimate that those pre-season friendlies are a very different animal compared to professional clubs that play as well. So yeah, there's teams got high expectations. I think there's teams again, like we mentioned earlier, a little bit in the unknown of what to expect. And like any team as well, that they're almost looking over the shoulder and doing their best to stay in the division. But I think so far, what's absolutely stood out, which I mentioned at the top of the show, is the amount of goals that are going in. Defenses are definitely not on top. I only saw, like I say, 8 goals last night, and it could have been a lot more. So it's encouraging to see. And honestly, for people who are listening and watching this, I keep saying it, but you are going to get entertained sometimes at non-league. If you're lucky, you will catch an absolute belt of the game. Like, for instance, last night, the Steaton game probably wasn't arguably the best on the eye, but there were 3 unbelievable goals, especially the first one when he's pinged it in the top corner from 40 yards, and we absolutely kid you not, if that was one that you'd see on Match Every Day, wouldn't it, every week? So you do get them absolute gems out of nowhere, but yeah, I think you look at Steaton on Tuesday. We had a real disappointing loss on Saturday. I think 1 down after 18 seconds. Then they were 2 down after about 5 minutes. I think by half time they were 3-0 down, 4-0 down, had a man sin binned, and then they got somebody. The opponent got somebody sent off, and then they still just didn't do well. And Roy Mason's made 5 changes at half time. Said at halftime he could have made all 11 changes if he had enough subs. And then, like I say, Tuesday, we didn't really get into a flow of it in the first half, but second half really went on the front foot and actually looked a real good outfit, a really good team that could do really well in that division if they play a real fast-flowing type of football.
Yeah, if ever there was a way not to start a season, it's conceding after 18 seconds of it.
Just a bit. Yeah, just a bit. I mean, you couldn't think of a worse start, could you? It's not only that, you go 1-0 down and then you're 2 down after about 3 minutes. So it's one of those where it's damage limitation. And like I say, to make 5 subs at half time, it's unheard of, isn't it, really?
Have we covered sin bins at lower non-league on this podcast yet?
Not yet.
No.
It's there.
You just slipped it in there.
Yeah, I know. You're right. Yeah. And it's a really interesting one at this level because it does happen at sin bins, 10 minutes just to, and I think a lot of it's for dissent, to be honest. We could have seen someone Tuesday night. Obviously can't repeat on here, but there were some choice words to the referee. And he would have been more than entitled to put him in a sin bin for 10 minutes. To be honest, I think it's a great idea. And also for a lot of the games I've seen, I can't actually remember seeing one incident happen last year where they use a sin bin. It is quite rare. And I think sometimes it's almost probably forgotten about because it isn't really a known thing, is it? But yeah, in terms of it being used, I don't think it's used probably enough. Do I see it happening probably higher up the leagues? Probably not, nowhere near yet. Just because I think of the nature of the beast and the money and the whole, status that comes around it. But yeah, but it could have happened Tuesday for sure.
I mean, it'd be like if you sin bin for dissent. Surely, if you come back on after you've had your 10 minutes, if you swear
at him again,
it'll be a straight red, surely, because the ref's got to say, "Well, you've been sin binned for it, and you're doing it again." It's surely not then just going to be a yellow card. Like he must have to send the player off. I don't know.
The inconsistencies, mate, at best level are varied, so anything could happen. And I think, to be fair to us guys on this, and I think with Stephen and Jason didn't mention it earlier, but we talk about the rule changes that are getting brought in at Premier League and EFL level with the PGMOL coming out with all the time wasting. We're looking at different offside rules. We're looking at new rules in technical areas. Where we're even talking about sometimes not allowed more than one coach in a technical area, or if they do, they've got to stand closer to the seating. And it is again a bit of a grey area of how far does that go down a pyramid. And we know football, don't we? A lot of us guys, but the first 4 weeks of the season, those rules are implemented really strongly, and then all of a sudden it kind of just dies a little bit, it fades away, and something else is a new topic of a month. But it will be interesting to see how far that goes down because, if the guys in the National League and the EFL are getting 10 minutes of added time, why wouldn't that be the same at non-league level? Because it happens. It absolutely happens. Probably actually more so than ever because they can get away with it because there's very little cameras. There's sometimes no evidence of it happening. So there's not much to call upon, whereas in EFL, you've got cameras everywhere. You've got, fourth officials. But, on a Wednesday night at Campion, you've got a referee and 2 assistants, and then it's every person for themselves.
Do kind of want to touch on a couple more of the sides across our region that in particular had good starts. Campion, obviously, the side that you saw last night hit Botsford for 6.
Yeah.
But 2 wins for them from 2 games, a newly promoted side to the Northern Counties East League Premier, having won Division 1 last season. I think this is probably a better than expected start for Campion.
Yes.
Momentum is massive, isn't it?
Yeah, massive. They've signed, I think, 1 player, but they don't need to sign any more at the moment because we've got such a settled squad over the past 2-3 years. It makes a huge difference. We talked about Farsley having an overhaul of their squad and Campion are completely the opposite. They've got players who've been with them for, like I say, 2-3 seasons and got promoted. So why would you change that winning formula? They looked relatively comfortable against Frickley on Saturday. I've been watched the highlights and spoken to him yesterday. As well, they had a goal disallowed after they scored the first goal. If you watch it on their YouTube channel, honestly, you will shake your head at how that's given an offside goal. Apparently, even the referee apologised for disallowing a goal because it shouldn't have been disallowed. But then last night, they've hit Botsford for 6. I'll be honest and say, without any bias, because obviously they are a really good club, but at that level, you're probably not going to see a better team attacking wise. They are absolutely frightening. If for those that are listening and watching, if you remember back to kind of the Kevin Keegan days at Newcastle United, the entertainers, they're always wanting to score 1 more than the opponent, regardless of what the score is. And last night, 6 could have been 8 or 9.
For people who don't know, where are they in the pyramid? Kind of, if we're kind of placing.
So if we're talking about the pyramid, so we've got obviously City League 2, Halifax Conference, National League, call it Conference, Farsley National League North. Then you've got Northern Premier League, Northern Premier, East, Midlands, West, and then you've got Campion at NCL level. So it is in comparison to
Division 9, isn't it? But the pyramid's that big at the bottom that there's 10. There's about 10 at that level into the step 4 of the non-league pyramid.
Oh, it goes on and on, doesn't it? Regionalised.
It's literally, that's why it's called the pyramid, because the leagues just
go out and out.
And then you've got North and South as 2, and then they feed in, and it literally goes like that. But yeah, it's, to cut a long story short, it's like the 9th division in it, because Brighouse are the 8th division, and they're the league above, and Emley are sort of about Campion's level as well.
Yeah,
same division.
Things like that are all of that kind of level.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, when kind of comparing them to Keegan and Newcastle team, it is like that. They will attack. They're not scared of attacking. They're probably a little bit shaky in defence. Last night they saved a penalty, and they could have easily had a goal or 2 against them as well. So it could honestly been 8-4, and it wouldn't have been, it would have been pretty reflection of the game. But they've got probably a strike force of Marcus Day, who is probably a level or 2 above where he should be. Paddy Sykes is too good for that level, in my opinion, as well. Nicky Boschel's won the Northern Premier League with Avenue in the past and played at Conference North for a long time. Those guys, especially Dave, will know him as well from Halifax in the local area. Boschel at 37, 38, he's got a wand of a left foot. But they've just got a lot of stability. And last night, I think they had 4 or 5 players out and still win 6-2. They'll be difficult to stop if they carry on the run. They will be difficult to stop. But like I say, the issue with Campion is can they score more than what they're conceding in the moment? They are.
A solid start to the season as well. Excuse me. Elsewhere, Albion Sports 4 points from their 2 games. Penistone Church also on 4 points. Stackley a win and a loss for them so far. Golka, I say it's very, very early days. Bottom end of the Northern Counties East League. Comes the surprise for us, especially Lewis, I know, because of the recruitment they've had in the summer. It's the one that Gaz is attacking himself to in Silsden. Now, for those that don't know, Cale Price is a man who has scored 60-plus goals in his last 2 seasons. He did it with Steeton, and then he got 30 goals last year for Golka. The fact that he is still at the same league now as Golka is absolutely baffling that he's joined to Silsden. But it's fair to say that there's finances and resources being provided because their recruitment is ridiculous. The fact that they've got Cale Price, Ross Daly, who has joined from Guiseley, who was there last season, Adam Clayton has joined from Farsley, Kyle Trenery, who is a known goalkeeper across the region. There's a handful of others as well. They're a side that perhaps should be, well, we were expecting them anyway to have started better than they have. 2 defeats from 2, and in particular a 3-2 defeat on Tuesday night against Knaresborough Town at home.
Yeah, it's not the start I wanted. I think that's kind of understatement of the year, isn't it? You know, there's players who have dropped down 2 or 3 divisions to play for Sills, and this is what we're talking about recruitment-wise. And those players that are signed are experienced players who've been there, done it, and won promotions. They're not just any players around the local region have signed. They are top-quality players. Cale Price, he's been...
For a lot of his age, he's still only, 23, maybe 24 at most?
Yeah, probably a little bit older, but he's been looked at from clubs higher up in the pyramid as well. So I think the 2 defeats are disappointing, especially that Friday night opener against Albion Sports. 520 on a Friday night for the season opener. I think it's brilliant for the league. Shows exactly what, the appetite is there for non-league in the area. I know Silsden had a few things on and ran a promotion for, season ticket holders of local clubs could get in half price, but still to get 520 is amazing. But then Albion Sports have put themselves in a shop window by getting 6 points out of 6. I think for Silsden, it's going to take a little bit to get used to. Again, they've got to persevere because if they're going to sign them players, the last thing you want to do is swapping and changing things around after, investing in those kind of players. I think the time will come, but the longer it goes on without a win, there's going to be a lot of people getting a little bit anxious and a little bit wary of, actually, is this the right thing? That we've done during the summer, because, teams like Campion and Albion have got 6 points, 5 points head start already. And that's, to be fair, it's still a little bit, that's quite a lot already to make up after 2 games. So, and I think on paper, without any disrespect to Knaresborough and Albion, Silsden would have probably been expected to win those games. And it doesn't get any easier. Yes, they've got the FA Cup distraction this weekend, probably need that. They've got Padham away, and they probably just need to get away from the league a little bit and almost start again in that league to kind of get going again, because there's going to be teams that are going to be sniffing around those players if they're not doing what they do, what they should be doing on the league table. I'm surprised the likes of Cale Price, has kind of moved to Silsden. Does it feel a sideways move? Probably when you look at league positions, It probably does. I'm surprised that some of the players maybe not give it a go for a higher club for 3 or 4 months. And if it doesn't work out, you can definitely drop back to that level because clubs absolutely will take them. But at the end of the day, different circumstances, location, work commitments, all that does come into it. So, and Silsden on paper have built one of the strongest, if not the strongest squad in that league with the likes of Emily. So, like I say, they've got to win very soon to kind of just put it to bed a bit and start the season.
In these days, though, where EFL clubs in particular are now more so than ever scouring the non-league scene for that next gem, it will always baffle me that Cale Price, I think, is somehow, I'll say, not even just this year, but the year before as well, after his great season at Steeton, when other sides were looking at him then, higher up the pyramid, how in particular he hasn't opted to take that move to, a Northern Premier League club, because you think, well, your next step from the Northern Prem would be, someone like, for example, in the local area, go to Halifax. If you do well in Northern Prem, you get your move to Halifax. If you get your move to Halifax, you get your move to Bradford and League 2, and hey presto, you're a professional footballer. I know it's not quite that easy. You've got to do well at the clubs on the way, but Jamie Vardy is the prime example of that non-league striker who's done well.
It can happen, can't it? Like say, that dream journey has happened. It comes down to the person, individual at the time, doesn't it? What works for them. We've known not just, not saying about Kyle, but other players in the past that I've known, that have been looked at from higher clubs, but they've probably settled in the jobs for family-wise. They don't want to move the families from over end of the country to another. They've got their normal job as well as got a football job. So the football probably pays a mortgage. Then they've got the day job that they can, do whatever they need to do. Yeah, so there's a lot of different there's a lot of different things that and dependencies that come into it. I think if you do back yourself and you're confident enough to do it, you've got to be absolutely sure you're going to do it. And obviously, like Jamie Vardy have done that. I remember seeing Vardy at Halifax when Avenue were playing and watching Halifax. Sometimes Vardy didn't have always the greatest game. Sometimes Lee Gregory were probably the better player on his day sometimes than Vardy. But it's just sometimes you've got to be in the right place at the right time and really back yourself. And it comes down to that. They might, Price might change his mind at some point. He might actually go, you know what, let's go for it. Let's see what we can do. But at this moment in time, he seems to be relatively settled in this area, and it's a benefit for all of us in this local area because you still get to see someone on your doorstep that's got the ability to possibly move up and do it.
Yeah,
just to go back to a point that Lewis made, he was talking about Silsden having a poor start. You have to also remember at this level, not every player is under actual contract and there is no transfer windows.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this Price that you're talking about will probably be on a contract, but Silsden will have a crop of players that probably won't be on a contract. They may even be just paid per game, or if a bigger club comes in, that contract becomes void. There's so many different little I can't say the word intricacies. Yeah. In terms of the contract, because I know that Brighouse, they had a player called Mohamed Kassim last year.
Yeah.
He started the season quite well, and he went to Guiseley because he wasn't tied down on a contract. He was free to just leave.
He was a cracking player.
We're at a level where there is no like transfer windows, or some players, there'll be a crop of players that won't even be on a contract. But your better players tend to be on a contract. But like you were saying, if Silsden don't start right, there may be some players there that would be able to just up and go.
And and I think I mean, again, 100% spot on. And I think especially at this level, the likes of Silsden, you want to get off to a good start. So not only can you keep them, but you can probably go in the market again and add those players who might be on contract from somewhere else that are doing reasonably well. And I think we know that from non-league around us and probably across the country that there's not many teams that keep probably 11 from start to finish end of the season. It does change a lot.
Yeah.
I remember I had a good town in when they were in the non-league. They had the teams. They were having 2 or 3 teams during the season, and look at them now. So there's that absolute appetite to move across, and I think even more so that players do move with managers, move into different clubs because they know them well, they trust them, they know they're probably going to get paid as well, and they've got that that friendship that'll go with them. So it's a conundrum for a lot of players because they're probably better off sometimes in non-league than actually risking it and going professional. And there's that absolute guarantee you're going to be playing week in, week out, and that you despite that dream of becoming a pro footballer, times have changed a lot now, and there's a lot of money in non-league.
Yeah, very much so. Just one more kind of point to touch on. Really, actually, a couple of other clubs, but Wakefield, they're of course a side that have now moved back to Bellevue, back into Wakefield, and people are getting behind the club. It seems. I think they are just shy of 400 for their first home game of this season. Obviously, that's certainly one to watch. They haven't necessarily got the squad full of names of known from non-league circles, but certainly a project that the size of the club could become, if it goes well, is something to be excited about for the city of Wakefield. Yeah,
definitely, and I think it's that famous old is it kind of statistic? It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest city that's not had a pro team, in the pyramid. So, I think that shows the catchment area of Wakefield. I work in Wakefield myself, and travel there a lot, and there is a bit of talk about it. Obviously, it is a real rugby league town, city. It absolutely is, and obviously they've had a few challenges on the pitch, but picking up as well. But the football side's kind of complementing that, and again at this level, NCL first division, to have just short of 400 fans is remarkable. We're talking about some teams, and I'll throw Farsley into there, who sometimes don't even get 400, 500. Wakefield have been getting sometimes 600, 700 in friendlies. So it's good to see them back up and running. A full new rebrand as well. We've got a stadium in the city centre pretty much as well. That's, probably rugby league circles might not be the best, but in football level where they are now is probably one of the best as well. So yeah, it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a quick journey for them to go up through the non-league pyramid if they decide to do it that way. They're not going down the route of, the Buries and the Macclesfields because they haven't got that fan base yet. They haven't got that tradition in the history. They're not that established really to count upon that. But I think they are kind of counting on, the youth of Wakefield to get behind them, to play for them. And they have got an experienced pro, well, kind of semi-pro with Ash Flynn there, who, like Cale Price, in years gone by, has scored 30, 40 goals a season at Golker and wherever he's been as well recently at Campion to help him get promoted. So they've got that talisman up front that we talked about earlier across all the teams. And a lot of people are tipping Wakefield to do well because with that crowd behind them, they're probably going to get a better cash flow than everybody else in that league. And they're an attractive proposition to go to at the moment.
Yeah, very much so. And then and finally, in the same division as Steeton, the Northwest counties, still one of those things that baffles my head that Silsden, which is more westerly than Steeton, or where they play anyway, is in the east, while Steeton, more easterly of Silsden, is in the west. But anyway, in the same league as that, there's new kids on the block, really, in Route 1 Rovers, who last season were playing down at Myrie Shea in Bradford, in the Yorkshire Amateur Leagues. They've joined the pyramid this time round, and they have won both of their games so far. 2 wins from 2, and featuring in both games somebody with a hat-trick as well. Top of the Northwest Counties Division 1 West.
Yeah, what's that saying? Noisy neighbours. I think this could be an example. You know what? They've got a little bit of a name about themselves already, I think, around the city of Bradford as well, where they are starting to be known a little bit more, and winning games does that, doesn't it?
They're playing it.
Football's a fickle game, isn't it? Yeah, football's a fickle game. You win games, you're going to attract people to come and watch you and talk about you a lot more than. I mean, they're doing it. We're doing it now, aren't we? We wouldn't have been talking about Route 1 Rovers 2 years ago. Last season ago, completely unbeaten. I think they win pretty much every game, if not every game. And now 2 wins out of 2 in a high division. They've never been at this level. Like say, ground sharing at Marley with Steeton. Seem to have a good relationship there as well. And Monday night, for those that are watching or listening, they've got Ilkley Town, so it's a bit of a West Yorkshire derby at Marley. So, hopefully we can try and get down there and watch them. And they seem to be really active. They seem to be doing things right on social media as well, attracting the audiences. For, let's be honest, we live in a day and age probably beyond me at the moment, but they're on TikTok. We're going mental on TikTok and Instagram, and highlights are on Instagram at the moment. So they are doing it a different way.
Shame we're not the Route 1 show still, isn't it? God, we need to change the name back. Change the name back now, immediately.
It's going to be another one to look out for. We talk about Wakefield. I think Route 1 Rovers, they're probably not going to have obviously the same amount of spectators going to watch them, but we talk about a lot of clubs in our area. Route 1 have added to that list, and they seem to be they're quite passionate, I think, by doing the right thing and going up the league. So let's see what happens. And 2 wins out of 2 in a division, it's better than Silsden, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, as you're saying, to be fair, the fact that they're playing at Marley will help because it's a good facility that, let's be fair, Steeton have created down there over the last few years, and putting in some stands that are recycling of shipping containers. But it's a really good little initiative, and obviously Route 1 are now moving there as well because of the ground grading criteria. It will benefit them as well. Play on the AstroTurf.
Yeah, it sounds like something you find out of a comic magazine, wouldn't it? Route 1 Rovers is something.
It is Roy of the Rovers stuff, isn't it?
It is, really is. And they seem to be expanding the net in terms of the recruitment as well. They are signing players with Northwest Counties experience, and as well have been at local clubs. We know, I think, is it Miles Foley's been there? They've been at Guiseley and Farsley as well. So, they're doing a homework, which is good to see. And I suppose if we're winning games, people are going to be attracted to go to go play for them and see what we're all about. I'm just as curious as anybody else. I've not seen him yet. Hopefully we'll do soon.
We're going to go down on Monday, aren't we?
Well, hopefully. But
if you're not divorced by then.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But this, I think they even listen to us guys. They've been following us and stuff like that. So, they are wanting to be known about and talked about, which absolutely you would do. So, yeah, let's see how far they can go. I'm not saying they're going to win the league at all, but imagine if they're going to knock on the door like what Ilkley did last season. That's an achievement. And like Steeton and Silsden and are going to be looking, and Ilkley are going to be looking. Actually, what are they going to be doing over the next 2-3 years? Because it's another competitor in already a crowded market. do they carry on ground shedding at Marley? Do they move back into the city of Bradford? If they do they go back into the North East counties? There's a lot of, again, intricacies is the right word. What we're saying earlier is that what does that future look like? Because they're just a new startup, really. And to be successful, we've got to have a little bit of a foundation to build on, and let's see where they can go.
It's interesting because they are in the position now that Steeton and Ilkley were in, over the last couple of years in terms of joining the pyramid. Ilkley, of course, as you mentioned there, are who Route 1 Rovers are playing on Monday night. And obviously a good season last season, missing out with the playoffs last year for Ilkley. Unbeaten start, a win and a draw so far from their first 2 games. So actually, you're talking top versus fifth. Nobody's lost yet. That game on Monday night.
Yeah, Ilkley have again recruited well, got a really good manager with Sam Dexter. I know the guys at Steeton think highly of him as well, don't they? From when we were speaking to them, I think they've again another quite a relative new startup over at Ben Ridding. They've done really well. So yeah, I think it's going to be, if we can get there, it'll be a really good battle at Marley between both teams, and Ilkley going really close. And I think Chappers were right in our non-league special that, if they'd won that penalty shootout, they could have potentially gone up, which would again could have been a whole new scenario with different league positions and locations, and whether it ends up where in any league. But yeah, it's fascinating to watch Route 1 do what they're doing. Ilkley setting up and doing really well. Steeton, from what we've seen, are wanting to push Ilkley a bit closer. Shelley as well being promoted. I know they lost against Route 1 3-0, but Shelley being up there, and remember Shelley being, is a community club, and to them to be in that kind of top division really in the North West Counties Division North is another achievement. So it's good to see these teams coming through. But it is a very, very competitive market, and I think, like say to Dave's point earlier about players signing for different teams and following people, and it's that continuity. I've not known it in a long, long time how competitive it is, and teams are either going to have to stump up a little bit of cash to attract them, or they're going to have to win games and attract them through that way to be successful.
Absolutely, that probably just rounds off quite nicely. I'd say if you're in the Bradford area, at least, or Keighley area, you've got that game on Monday night. There's plenty, actually, if you check out the Northwest Counties and the Northern Counties Easterly websites, plenty of midweek football this week. In fact, to be fair, for most of August, because they preload that first month of the season whilst the weather is good, with plenty of midweek fixtures to take in if your EFL sides aren't playing. So there's a lot to see across the West Yorkshire non-league scene, it has to be said.
Yeah, it's madness, isn't it, how there's that many games, and we're talking about people having work commitments and just doing what they're doing, but they really do top load that fixture list from Saturday to either Tuesday or Wednesday for the first 3-4 weeks, and then you don't have a midweek game potentially until about January, which is just, it's madness.
Put it this way, like Lewis's divorce pending. When we were at Steeton on Tuesday night, we were talking about going down to see Route 1 Rovers on Monday. I think Gulka and Thackley are both at home on Tuesday. I think Campion and Albion Sports are both at home on Wednesday. So we were thinking of a game a night next week.
If you're not getting divorced, you're going to have to teach me how are you avoiding getting divorced. I would be.
I'll let you know at the end of next week. I'll say, there's so much action in it. It's great. There's some really good games. The that's the picks next week. I think Eccles Emily is a big game. I know Steve will talk about Emily earlier. I think they are one of the favourites. They look really strong, but there is a lot of action. Sometimes for me, probably as crazy as it says, go and watch all the games I do. Sometimes can be a little bit too much. So I think we do need to spread it.
Says your wife.
Yeah, I know. I know. Tell me about it. I know. It could do with being spread out a lot more across the season to just help a lot of teams out, because it's such a heavy calendar. We're talking about FA Cup this weekend. Extra preliminary rounds. There's teams who've had played 2 games, 3 games, then going to the FA Cup, and then are backing up again with the league fixture midweek. It's honestly, and that's what happens if we draw. We're talking about potential still even replays, not being replays. But honestly, it changes that many times each year. Honestly, you can't keep up with it.
Well, you got Dave, by the way, in the comments there about Halifax to win in the playoffs. What do you think of that, Dave? Are you taking that?
I would take it any day of the week. Be nice to visit Wembley again, but I can't see it happening. But we do have, obviously, we have 100% record at Wembley, and we've never conceded a goal at Wembley. So, that's a record worth holding on to for such a long time. But keeping on with like the lower league, you're saying about all these matches around, lower league clubs play games on Monday nights, so they don't clash with Tuesday games. Higher up in the pyramids, and Friday nights,
we've started to see, haven't we, around here, in particular Friday nights are starting to become a bit of a hot night for non-league football in this area to avoid the clashing with the Leeds, as you're saying, Dave, with Leeds and Bradford and the likes.
So they purposely try and not play on the same night so they don't clash to capitalise on that fact.
Yeah, you're right. And we're not even talked about, and I know we probably will preview it next week, but we've not even talked about the Northern Premier League starting either. That's not it's not even starting this weekend, as well as all these other games are happening. We've got Premier and East starting next week with a lot of our teams mentioned. So there's so much action if you're around to go watch it, and it does help a lot of those clubs. And it's not a cliche, but it really does. And when Silsden are getting 500, we were at Steaton on Tuesday night, 150 going down. Doesn't sound a lot, but it actually is a lot for some of these clubs.
That's a lot for that level, yeah. Who's in the MPL then? Guiseley, and was there any other Yorkshire clubs?
Guiseley and Avenue.
Oh, did Avenue go down? I always had them down as being in the north.
Yeah, we got relegated. I mean, obviously you've got Brighouse, Ponty, Ossett, the rest of them.
Yeah, they're like just the one below.
In the east and Liversedge.
Before we finish up, Lewis.
Sorry.
No, it's fine, mate.
As far as they just stayed up, didn't they? And you've obviously said they're going to struggle again. I didn't realise they'd gone.
Yeah, we'd gone.
just very quickly, because we will look to do a proper preview on Avenue and Guiseley, whatnot next week. But Lewis, how are you feeling as an Avenue fan? Season approaching. What's the vibe?
There seems to be a little bit of positivity with recruitment. There was an announcement last week, which I know why they're doing it. They're talking about going hybrid. So there's a mix of full-time, part-time players. I think that's probably more for the academy side at the moment and younger players. I think those that are there now, the experienced and old heads won't go full-time because they're probably too far in the career to go full-time. Today we've just signed an academy. Scott, who came out as a scholar from the academy, Zach Gersley. So I can imagine Zach would be full-time coming out of that academy into the system now because the academy's, kind of behind them, so to speak. I think from a recruitment, we've recruited really well and held on to some good players. I think Lucas Dunstan, we've probably got one of the best, if not the best right back in the league. We've just signed Mason O'Malley from Scunthorpe, who's played 80 games for the club recently. Excuse me. And then Will Lancaster, so positivity, hopefully.
Yeah, good stuff. Gaz, final word from you on Bradford City then. How are you feeling ahead of Saturday's game and generally for the season?
Got a win on Saturday. Yeah, I know we saw it before, and I am quite negative at times, but it's all about getting off to a good start. And we need to win on Saturday because Crawley are a basket case, and after that we've got a tough start. We've got Stockport, we've got Morecambe. We've got Colchester, who have recruited well this summer.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Morecambe and Colchester, come to think of it, when we were talking about the sides that could be around the playoffs, and that's two of them to add to the list.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Colchester are a bit of dark horses, I think, with the way they're recruited. Morecambe, Adams has done it before. Obviously, nightmare spell with us, but he did it before at Morecambe. Who's to say he can't do it again? My local team, Aki Stanley, they could do well again as well. Coleman's does a great job here.
Never write off John Coleman.
Yeah, we've got them in the cup on Tuesday. I'm not going down to Crawley. I went last year, so I don't think I'll get the pass to go again. But I'm going to go to Aki. That'll be my first game on Tuesday, so we'll see how we get on there in the cup. But yeah, we need to win on Saturday to get off to a good start. Us.
Yeah, if you want advice on getting passes, just speak to Lewis.
I'll drop us a message, don't you worry, mate. Yeah.
I went last year when we were up near the top of the league, so I think first game of the season. Just a few months later, I don't think I get to go again.
Good stuff. All right. Well, I think that's about everything covered, isn't it, across the region? What do we think, fellas? Anything else we want to add before we go?
Any other business?
Any other business? Yeah.
I think we've chatted enough for 2 hours.
The one thing we do need to plug actually is the West Yorkshire Football Show Fantasy Football League.
We do, yes.
That is the one thing we do need to plug. And if I could remember the code for it, that would make this even better. But I can't.
We'll tweet it out.
Check the social medias, yes. And as soon as I can remember it and find where it is, we'll tweet it out. But there is a West Yorkshire Football Show Fantasy Football page for, of course, when the big boys start that doesn't include Leeds anymore. So, yeah. Sorry, Steve.
No, it's fine. I won't take it personally. I was picking all these rubbish Leeds players last season, getting 0 points. So at least I won't have to put up with that anymore. Jeez, I think I had Aronson in my team. I think he got me about 5 points all season.
I remember at one point there used to be a championship fantasy football. I can't remember like who created it or where it was. This is going back, I reckon, at least a decade or so. There used to be like a championship football, fantasy football league, and I'm surprised that's never caught on. To be fair,
business opportunity there, fellas. We should take advantage of that.
I love how we've chatted for 2 hours and not one of us thinks we're all going to get promoted.
I know, that's it. I know, exactly. I listened to a podcast the other day. They had Leeds going up as champions. I was like, that's way too optimistic for me. That I can't get on board with that level of optimism. No chance.
Wait till Thursday night, we'll bring you back down to earth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have you seen the computer-generated AI ones? The ones that have predicted the league finishes across the season? They're doing the rounds on Twitter, and you've got so many people replying saying, "We're not going up. We're not going up."
Yeah,
that's
those supercomputers do my head in.
If that isn't football fans in general, I don't know. Like what sums us up, I don't know. Because even your City fans, they'll be Manchester City fans. That is. There'll be section of the fan base like, well, we're not going to win the league this year.
Exactly.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. Another season preview finished. We'll be back in various forms, various shows over the next few weeks. See how all our teams start. I want to thank everyone for being on the show as well. Gaz, Dave, Lewis, Jason and Steve earlier, as well as yourself, Chris, as well. We'll be back later. Please smash a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel as well to follow content for all our teams across West Yorkshire. And also join our Fantasy Football League as well. Chris will get the code. We will tweet it. We'll pin it to the top of our Twitter feed as well. But yeah, been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back again soon.